I'd like to call to order the Bedford County School Board regular meeting scheduled for tonight, February 8th, 2024. Ms. Johnson, if you would, please take roll.
Mr. Hill,
Present.
Mr. Daniels,
Here.
Mr. Holbrook,
Here.
Dr. Huba,
Here.
Mr. Knight,
Present.
Mr. Nelms,
Here.
Mrs. Purvis. Here. Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you. All right, do I have a motion for the approval of the agenda as written?
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Nelms. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Purvis. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Let me move my microphone. All right. If you will, please stand for the presentation of colors. Please join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order, arms. Outward, move. Present, arms. Order, arms. Reform.
Please join me for a moment of silence. Thank you. All right, next order of business is staff reports, 2.01 school presentations for Bedford Primary School and Bedford Elementary School. Dr. Bergen.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Good evening, board members. Has been our custom this school year, in order to keep the board as well as the community informed about our strategic work in each of our schools, we're very pleased to welcome tonight Mrs. Lisa Dallas, principal of Bedford Primary School, and Mrs. Marty Bratt, the principal of Bedford Elementary School. They are each going to be sharing information about their school's accomplishments and the goals of their school's continuous improvement plans. And leading off tonight will be Mrs. Dallas.
Good evening, school board members. Thank you for taking the time to allow us to share with you about our schools this evening. Bedford Primary School was founded in 1964, which makes 2024 our 60th year of providing foundational learning for our youngest students in preschool, kindergarten, and first grade. On this slide, you'll see our vision and mission, as well as our school pledge that's read each morning on announcements to help remind our students of positive behavioral choices and expectations. At Bedford Primary, we try to celebrate both big and small accomplishments. We are proud of our enrollment, which includes the largest number of preschool offerings in the county, with 5 preschool classrooms, as well as an adaptive special education classroom. As we're teaching some of our youngest learners and students, we strive to build a strong foundation for them both academically and behaviorally, which was supported this year by our first 20 days of building routines and expectations across our schools. It also allowed us to give visuals to both students that help them remember what is expected and routines that are practiced and reinforced throughout the year. This focus was also supported by the new reading curriculum that you adopted last year, and it has been very helpful in our students being able to make growth this year. Students enjoy and celebrate special things throughout the day. They really enjoy our special classes that they go to. They enjoy sharing with our staff and their families about their weekly experiments in a makerspace, as well as their experiences in library, art, music, and PE. In addition, our guidance counselor works with them bi-weekly in their classrooms to make progress and social skills, as well as behavioral choices that follow those routines and expectations. We encourage our kids to work hard and play hard every day. We love to celebrate their learning with them, and some of those recognized special days you'll see here on the screen. We celebrate students' birthdays by announcing them on the announcements each morning. They also get a small token for recognition of their individual special days. Our school dressed in orange for Unity Day this past fall, and our kindergarten students did a Halloween parade to a local nursing home where they visited and showed off their costumes. The interesting part of that is when you go to the Elks home in October, they've already got Christmas decorations up. So the picture that you see there has them walking past candy canes in October. Our most recent celebration was our 100th day celebration, where our students and staff dressed as if they were 100 years old. Upcoming celebrations include Dr. Seuss's Read Across America Day, Kindness Week that's in February. Be on the lookout again this year for us to invite you to come and be a guest reader for Read Across America Day. We celebrate the fact that our PTA is led by some awesome parents this year and supported by our school staff. That is a true celebration because during COVID and the years since, we've had limited parent exposure with that board, but thankfully this year we've got parents back on the board and supporting our school. They support both fun events as well as learning events that you see here on the screen, some of which have already passed and some that will be coming soon. I will just point out that our Fall Festival was held in October at Bedford Primary in conjunction with Bedford Elementary, and in the spring we will do Spring Fling at the elementary school because our schools truly are combined in families and children. See lots of pictures here about fun that they've had at some of these events. We're always excited to have our students come back and visit, whether that is to participate in a fun event, to serve as an intern, or just to come say hello to their previous teachers. Pictured above, you see a picture of a preschool family night event that was actually held on the same night that Liberty High School was doing their lineup for their homecoming parade, along with a picture of one of our Fall Festival families. We look forward to seeing more families that we may know and new families as we hold our preschool and kindergarten registration in March. We celebrate our educators at Bedford Primary School, whether they were with us previously, currently with us, or are going to be entering the field of education. You'll find on this screen a Head Start teacher who was previously at Bedford Primary School came to celebrate teachers and recognize their hard work with snacks for them in September. This is Victoria Dawson, who is the Associate Director of the Office of Child Care, Health, and Safety. And under the state superintendent's platform of #ElevateEducators Virginia, she wanted to recognize the hard work of our staff. We also have recognized some fabulous educators in our building, both Ms. Rachel Patterson, our Teacher of the Year, as well as Bedford Best recipient Katie Clark. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see where we have supported 21 interns this year from Liberty University as well as University of Lynchburg, one Teach for Tomorrow student from Bedford County, a student teacher, and we're looking forward to hosting the early childhood education program at the beginning of next year that's currently at Susie Gibson. Throughout the slideshow, you see some murals of our walls that staff have created to brighten up our building. This one does remind our students of who is responsible for their actions, including but not limited to their learning, their behavior, and their success, which we measure with our school improvement plan. Our first goal in our school improvement plan is for reading. We established 2 reading goals to monitor the progress separately due to the differing expectations of each grade level assessment. It's noted that we expect at least 75% of each group of students to meet benchmarks on their assessment in the spring. While this might not appear to be a lofty goal, based on the baseline data from the fall, which you find in the blue chart at the top, it is important to note that the expectations on these assessments each year increase greatly between fall and spring, so maintaining and increasing that pass rate truly does show a great deal of student progress. It is noted that we are striving to reach the same level of pass rates from prior to COVID in those yellow bars that show us results from 2019 on both our kindergarten PALS assessment as well as our first grade PALS assessment. In addition to monitoring the progress of all of our students, we do monitor the progress of our subgroups. And this year we have implemented a dedicated reading remediation time that allows us to remediate students to ensure growth. Additionally, with the implementation of the Virginia Literacy Act and the use of science-based reading strategies, we anticipate seeing more and more growth. We've also established 2 goals for math for our students and monitor these separately due to both differing expectations of the assessments as well as 2 different assessments. The VKRP is the kindergarten assessment, while the IXL assessment is utilized in first grade. It is noted that we expect at least 80% of our kindergartners to achieve the goal on the assessment that is administered individually to them with their teacher, while we expect 70% of our first graders to achieve the goal on a computerized assessment. Again, similar to with our PALS data, it may not appear that our expectations for our kindergartners is a lofty goal, but that also has those expectations that increase dramatically from the fall to the spring of students being able to perform on that test to a certain degree. Once again, we are still striving to reach our same success rate prior to COVID and recovering from that. We also have implemented a remediation time for math daily to ensure that we are working towards the progress of all students. In first grade, you'll see that we are using IXL. I will point out that over the years, there have been different assessments used in math. Starting in 2019, we used the curriculum assessment for both kindergarten and first grade. Since COVID, have used VKRP in kindergarten, but the test has changed for first grade from FastBridge, Envisions, and is currently IXL. I'll point out we're using this type of assessment to measure our students' progress because we do not test SOLs in kindergarten and first grade, although we teach to those skills so that students are ready for those assessments in third grade. At Bedford Primary, we continue to closely monitor our students' progress in the area of science, which was recently a concern for accreditation. And in doing so, we have established goals for at least 70% of our students on a combined pass rate for all assessments for their science unit tests. With the implementation of the new science curriculum last year, we've shown growth in this area and continue to see students perform at expected levels. With the exception of one unit assessment, we have achieved an excess of 70% pass rates on all of the tests given, with many in kindergarten being above 85% this year. We established a climate goal this year to improve our climate and improve appropriate student interactions and behaviors in the school setting, which would increase our engagement as well as decrease off-task behaviors. This is supported by establishing strong classroom expectations and routines within those first 20 days of school, with those visual supports that can be reviewed as needed throughout the year. We collect data about the students' progress in meeting our expectations through walk-through observations, and students also receive individual recognition for appropriate behaviors through our ROAR program that is facilitated by our school counselor. Students earn golden ROAR tickets that you see pictured on the screen for making appropriate choices, and after receiving a certain number of those tickets are able to exchange those for a prize to reinforce their positive choices. Those prizes have been purchased with funds provided from community partners, and students are thrilled to share their success with adults at school and their families. Our last goal for our continuous school improvement plan addresses attendance. Like many other schools, chronic absenteeism has been an area of concern for us with accreditation. Therefore, we established this attendance goal this year and participated with the VDOE and Attendance Works in a webinar to find ways to improve attendance. A Spirit Week was held in September to kick off our attendance drive. We shared the importance with families of good on-time daily attendance during that week and throughout the year with principal newsletters, teacher newsletters, as well as through class dojo messages and attendance calls and meetings. Collectively, classes work to earn letters to build words such as wow, here, great, and more, with all students being at school on time daily. Individual students are recognized for their positive attendance as part of our Attendance Heroes, which you see a bulletin board there displaying the students that achieved this award for the second quarter. Our Attendance Heroes increased from 186 students in the first quarter to 197 students in the second quarter, which means they had not missed more than 4 days of school during that quarter or were not tardy more than 4 days that quarter. We look forward to continuing to see growth in our attendance every day. It is noted that in most recent school calculations, our chronic absenteeism rate is currently 5.6% at this time. While we're aware that will likely grow some during the year, we're working closely with students, staff, and families to ensure that students are with us every day as much as possible. Thank you for allowing me to share information about our school with you this evening. Are there any questions I can answer?
All right, thank you, Ms. Davis. Questions? Mr. Daniels?
Thank you very much for that presentation. You hit it right at the end, the chronic absenteeism. Did you say it's at 5.6%?
Currently,
Okay. And we've already gotten through Christmas and everything else.
even up through Christmas and everything else,
I
I
mean-
calculated that this week.
So you went from 28.4 to 5.6.
Correct.
That's a
awesome.
very impressive stat there.
We're
So,
hoping that that will continue, although we do realize that will grow some before the end of the year.
yeah, but I mean,
Thank you.
that needs to be celebrated. That is a
That's
tremendous accomplishment there. We hear from principals every month, and it's a tremendous concern. I know it's a tremendous concern around the Commonwealth, but whatever you're doing, if you're getting those kids to be very happy to come to school and they want to come to school, that's what you start seeing, that number. So I just want to commend you on that. I thought I misheard it, and I was like, there's no way.
Correct.
That's a great job. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Dora hadn't raised her hand. Ms. Purvis?
I just wondered, you said guidance lessons. What is that? I'm not familiar with that.
Our school counselor goes into classrooms bi-weekly. She works on social skills, character development, and working on building social skills with kids and partnership activities. So
Does
she
she-
visits those classrooms.
She do it with all the kids in the classroom or just certain ones? Or?
The entire classroom meets with her during those lessons. She does do small group lessons outside for students that may be struggling in any sort of area socially.
And then if I have a second question, if I'm allowed. I know that you have a new, more rigorous English curriculum. And I'm looking at the stats from '23, they had gone down instead of up. Can you explain why that would be, from '22 to '23?
From 22 to 23, I would have to go back. Hang on just a moment and see if I can answer that from the slide.
I don't know if
22 to 23
I have
actually
a
went
different.
up on the yellow spring assessments.
I'm looking at science right now, sorry, just a second. Okay, so the other one that I was looking at was the one that I had gotten from Dr. Woodford. Let's see. What is this one? Virginia Department of Education. The accreditation information. that I-
Our accreditation information for Bedford Primary School reflects the testing that occurs on SOLs at the elementary school. So it's two different assessments that you're
I see.
looking at. On the screen, you're seeing our students' PALS results and pass rates
Okay.
for each year, but that is the pass rate for students at the elementary school beginning when they're starting SOL assessments in third grade.
So are you saying that the new curriculum, English curriculum, is helping with that? Is that
We
increasing their?
feel that that is going to be a great support with the
Okay.
science-based strategies that are being taught in the new curriculum. It is very new to us this year, so teachers are learning along with students. But so far has been going well.
Good.
Mr. Nels?
Yeah, you don't realize how old you are until you realize you went to school in the early 90s. But
Great.
the Teach for Tomorrow students is at 1. Is that a typical number you have, or is there a maximum number you can have per year?
Teach for Tomorrow students are based out of Susie Gibson, and they visit the schools. She comes in the mornings and works with a first grade class. I have not had a Teach for Tomorrow student in the last few years, and it really depends on student enrollment and interest
Okay.
in going into the field of education. With us hosting those early childhood students in the upcoming year, we're hoping that them being more in the schools and working with kids more frequently will increase numbers of kids that are interested in going into the Teach for Tomorrow program and education in the end. Currently, they are doing the Little Learners preschool over at Susie G. So that is an afternoon session, whereas next year they'll be able to come both morning and afternoon to work with students preschool through first grade.
Awesome.
Any other questions? Mr. Knight?
Good afternoon. Just a couple of questions real quick.
Sure.
When I'm looking at slide 8 and 9, it looks to me, and I may be misreading this, but for first grade, was the pass rate on reading 22, 23, 87? Is that 87% pass rate?
On 22, 23 for first grade, it is 87%.
But
yes.
but it looks like the goal for this coming year is 75%, is that right?
The goal for this coming year is 75%. If you look at the blue graph at the top, that will show you where they were this fall. So it was 64% of our first grade students passed it this fall, so 75% is the goal that we set for the spring.
Okay, so you set your goal, I see the baseline is 64 from the
Yes.
fall, but that would still be a decline from the 22, 23 overall?
That's the minimum we want to see. We definitely
Okay.
want to see more than that, but we also wanted to be realistic in our goal for our students.
Understood. I'm just noticing that there seems to be an upward trend coming back from COVID, but then that would be another decrease if you only hit 75.
If we only hit 75, it would be, and we're hoping to well surpass that 75%.
Okay.
But again, wanted to be realistic in our goal.
Okay, and sort of the same thing on math. I see what you're doing. You're using that fall
Right.
score as your baseline versus last year's.
Correct, because you're testing different groups of students, and we want to make sure that we're giving them every benefit that we can
Okay.
in making their progress.
All right. And then the only other question I had was kindergarten reading. It seems that the pass rates go down after COVID, just like all the other grades.
Yes, sir.
But I'm thinking about when a child learns to read. I would have expected that it wouldn't have had the same effect on kindergarten students, just because how often are they reading before kindergarten? So I'm just kind of curious, do you think that's what do you think is the reason? I understand it's COVID thought, it's thought to be COVID, but those kids weren't in school in the first place. So I'm just curious, what is it they're not reading at home, or
They
what do you
weren't
think?
in school in the first place. They may not have had as many opportunities to go to preschools if there were challenges for families or there was worries about that. Also, we had some attendance was a challenge, as we've noted throughout with our chronic absenteeism. So it could have been that parents were a little more careful in sending kids to school. So it might be that they missed more days those years. So
Yeah.
there's lots of things that could impact. You're right. They haven't been in school. They haven't been learning prior to that. But they also may not have had experiences, whether it was through preschool programs or people just stayed home more so during
Right.
COVID, so limited experiences that would have built those skills early on.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Everyone wants to, immediately look at the school and the absenteeism for, scores going down, and I think that is true. But the COVID issue, it affected home lives as well, and I think that we're seeing that based on these numbers, it looks to me like, this has something to do with what's going on at home as well. So just encouraging the community and the parents to really focus on reading at home, I think, is valuable. I think these numbers prove that it's not simply the lack of reading at school. Otherwise, kindergartners wouldn't have numbers decreasing like that, right?
On the first grade math, the baseline of 33%, so that's up until now this year.
That was what they did this fall when they took the assessment the first time. It looks at those first grade math skills. I will also say that is a computerized assessment. They're not used to that from kindergarten, so that's their first experience on a computerized assessment. And we know that our SOLs are computerized now, so we need to teach them how to take those computerized assessments. So that could have impacted what
Bit of
that
a
actual pass rate
learning curve.
was.
Is it Common Core math? Is that,
It's not Common Core. IXL is based on the standards of learning or the skills that are assessed on that
I got you,
assessment.
okay. That's it,
You good, Matt?
yeah.
Okay. So, okay, 1 second. When looking at the testing, Envisions, FastBridge, Envisions, IXL, can you, or someone, Dr. Bergen, maybe explain why we are jumping back and forth? And who requires, is that a state requirement? Is that something that we're approving? And, so I want to understand that piece, but then how is it affecting our kids by us changing the different tests?
From what I can speak to, it was the assessments that we had available to us at those points in time. IXL has been a county initiative more recently for us to use that as a division so that we're measuring everyone similarly, particularly in those grades that are not SOL tested, so you don't have that data to build on. You need some data to build on to measure students' progress, so that's what we've been using most recently. Envisions was available because it was part of our math curriculum that we still utilized early on, but we realized that that is the curriculum assessment, whereas the IXL gives them the experience with taking the computerized assessment. It provides more data that the teachers can analyze a bit better than just looking at a paper pencil assessment for the students. FastBridge was an assessment that was just utilized that 1 year coming out of COVID, and then we moved back into more standard
All right,
assessments.
so I'm going to put you on the spot here.
I'll do my best to answer.
IXL.
Yes.
Is that your recommendation of what we should be using to test our kids?
IXL is very comprehensive. Not only does it allow us to measure their progress in math, but it also gives us activities that students can participate in for remediation online as well, that lines up with SOLs and the similar format for testing. I believe that truly is a good assessment for us to be using at this point.
Thank you. Ms. Burbis, you have a question?
I just had a quick question. I know that with all of the, especially with the preschoolers and all of that, coming into some of the other, expectations and not having had some of the bases, what are you doing to try to help catch these kids up? I know there's the tutoring that's available that now through our governor, but what else have you been able to do to help catch these kids up?
So preschool is a little bit different than kindergarten and first grade. We truly have more preschoolers coming in, so we're able to build those social skills with them. They're learning through play. They still do the assessments in preschools using the PALS assessment as well as the VKRP to try to get those beginning reading and math skills assessed so that we know what skills to target with students during that time. With our first graders and our kindergarten students, we built those 2 remediation blocks within our day so that we're able to do small group remediation based on where the students are and adjust to meet their needs for remediation. If they need some extra math remediation based on simple numbers or number sense, then we can do that. If they are struggling with patterns, we can adjust for that based on what their needs during that small group time. In addition, both for reading and math during our remediation times, that's a time that our reading specialists can push in or pull kids out to address PALS remediation that needs to be done that's required. It's also a time that our instructional coaches and one of our paraprofessionals that works with students to help with those small group remediation times are able to assist in small groups as well so that we can target where their learning challenges are.
Awesome, thank you.
Very welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, Mr. Knight.
One more follow-up question about reading. I'm curious to see what you're doing to encourage the kids to want to read. What type of reward system or, I'm not talking about standardized tests. I'm just more on a daily basis what you're doing to encourage them to read. And the reason I bring this up is I'm embarrassed to say, maybe I should be proud, that my youngest son a few years ago, I think, broke a record at Manita Elementary for AR points, but I'm not sure that he read those books. In fact, I don't think he read them. I think he figured out how to pass the test and get a pizza party or something. So I'm just curious, maybe he's really smart, but he wasn't reading books and he was scoring a lot of points. So I'm curious what you're doing to encourage the kids to read, outside of something like an AR system.
With our children, they are very much learning those foundational skills of reading. So a lot of kindergartners are still working to learn how to blend words together. So a big part of encouraging that love of reading is to read to students. So there are oral reading of books and stories within the classroom so that we model that enjoyment. But we're also modeling how you read, that you're tracking as you read, that you're stopping to ask questions about that. A lot with our foundational development of kindergarten and first grade learning is focused on that, along with then working on those skills that are required for reading, the phonemic awareness, the phonics, the comprehension, and that daily practice.
Okay, yeah, that seems to me like the early stages of, being able to write a book report or give a presentation, which I think, in my opinion, is the most valuable way to prove that you can read well. Maybe more than the AR. I'm not a big fan of the AR point thing, but okay, that's great. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Any other questions? All right, Ms. Dallas, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Marty Brott, the principal of Bedford Elementary, and my assistant principal, Lee Thompson, is here. Just wave, Lee. And thank you so much. I'm excited to be here and share with you about Bedford Elementary. We are the Tigers, and we roar, which is why you see that tiger, and really, I think he kind of fits my personality and our school. So our vision at Bedford Elementary is we are encouraging students to be engaged, reflective learners and citizens. And we hope and we know that we are building the blocks, we are developing the building blocks and skills that students need to think critically, own their learning, and be prepared to be successful in all of their future challenges. And our values, our motto aligns with ROAR, which is respect, on task, a positive attitude, and being responsible, which is mentioned on morning announcements almost every day and encouraged highly. You'll see some of our celebrations, our Roar Wall at the top right. For students each quarter, students who receive minimal discipline referrals or none at all are nominated by teachers because they consistently display the characteristics of ROAR. And so students are then, every quarter, those students are called down, they get a treat, they get a certificate, and then they get to paint their hands and put them on the ROAR Wall. It's a lasting thing to see all year. We also do bucket fillers in the bottom left corner. So each year, Ms. Thompson, myself, and our school counselor reads the "How full is your bucket?" to every class. And that is really getting students to understand how important it is to help one another, whether it be adults or their classmates or peers, and anybody in the school building. And then grade levels, our peers nominate one another for students that help them. For example, if I dropped my notebook on the way down to class and somebody helped me pick it up, then I could nominate them as a bucket filler. And then those students are selected too for every grade level, are pulled out every Thursday afternoon and announced out of a bucket, and then they get to sit and eat lunch with the school counselor, get a treat, and also receive a certificate as being a bucket filler. We have musicals, as you can see in the bottom right. We also had new this year a family PE night, which was something that our PE teacher, Mrs. Eisner, who's our teacher of the year, really wanted to do. And that is a Gaga pit. If you've never heard of it or seen it, it's pretty interesting, and it was the main attraction at PE night. We also do Career Day, which you'll see up at the top right, which is reaching out to community members. Our school counselor takes care of that and gives students the opportunity to see all different kinds of jobs. We had some of our trades come from Susie Gibson and display lots of models and different things that they have in teaching, just to teach our kids about this is what we really need, what your opportunities are as you start to go through school. Buddy PE was another thing that our PE teacher came up with this year. This is super cool. Our second and fourth grade classes all in the whole building work together, as well as our third and fifth grade classes. And it's really developing a partnership and a school community and bond between older and younger students in our building, because during that time they play a lot of physical games and activities, and the older kids help the younger kids, and sometimes vice versa. We do teach, our Sheriff's Department does come in and teach DARE to our fifth grade students. And we also had Miss Virginia come and visit, and that's in the bottom right corner. And then we had some holiday hoopla, which was some extra accolades and incentives for our students who were really focused on learning and reading during that month of December when things can get kind of excitable before Christmas break. We also have book fairs. You'll see Mrs. Eisner, who is our teacher of the year, as our PE teacher. We also have a wonderful PTA, and we've done a fall festival. We will do the spring fling, as Miss Della said, to partner with the Bedford Primary. And then down at the bottom, we did have a reading challenge last year at the end of the year, and the students voted among the things that they wanted. What did they want to read for? And so they wanted to read to turn myself and several other teachers into a human Sunday. And if they met the minutes, then that's what we did. And as you can see, we met the minutes, and it was nasty. But it was well worth it. They had a lot of fun. And so now moving on to our continuous school improvement plan, we have 5 goals focused on science, reading, math, Virginia studies, and chronic absenteeism. Our first goal for science is we are going to increase our pass percentage rate on the Science SOL test in May from 55%, where it was last year, to 70% in May. Some of the action steps, here's just a couple of things that we are doing to make sure that we are heading in that direction, is that our teachers' lesson objectives, they're visible, they're communicated to students in student-friendly language, which basically is the how am I going to do this? Why am I doing this? How am I going to do this? And how am I going to know if I've actually met the target and I have mastered and understand the SOL skill? And then also 4th and 5th grade science, our teachers, they're administering the quarterly benchmarks. And teachers, we come back together in grade level meetings every week to look at and analyze assessment data. And that helps us determine during our Tiger Time what our teachers are remediating on to be sure that we don't leave any students struggling with not mastering the skills. Currently, our 4th grade science quarter 1 and quarter 2 combined pass rate is at a 48%. I know that may not look very exciting. However, that is higher than what we've been in the past, so we are actually pretty confident in that and really quite pleased with that. And our 5th grade science quarter 1 and quarter 2 combined pass rate for those benchmarks is a 56%. And again, we still have plenty of time to go, lots of time built in for remediation and retouching on those skills. And so, to be honest, we're pretty thrilled with that as well. Reading. Our second goal is for reading is to increase the pass percentage rate on the reading SOL test from 77% in May of 2023 to 78% in May of 2024. What are some of the action steps? We have a common lesson template for reading that is derived from Benchmark Advance, which is our new reading program, but also pulling out and making sure that we are aligning all of our instruction with the standards of learning, which that is our curriculum. For PALS, grades 2 and 3 will be used to monitor reading growth and develop small groups for reading instruction. What happens is, as Ms. Dellis mentioned too, PALS has a stronger focus in those lower grades because it's K through 3 that it's administered. And our teachers use that information, as do our support teachers, like our reading specialists and our special education teachers, to provide additional reading instruction in areas of weakness for students. Our current data is based on the combined quarterly benchmark data for reading. 58% of our students in grades 3 through 5 passed the reading benchmark assessments for quarter 1 and quarter 2. And based on the mid-year PALS data, we did see an increase of 1% in the number of students meeting the PALS benchmark. But again, all of those students will continue to receive additional growth opportunities and making sure that they get remediation. Math, goal 3. We are going to increase the math SOL pass percentage rate from 77% in May to 78% in May of 2024. Action steps are our students are taking the SGA, which is the student growth assessments required by the state. That's administered twice a year. Teachers are using that data along with many other measures of data to identify student-specific skill weaknesses for remediation. And Tier 2 and Tier 3 students are receiving additional remediation support from a remediation teacher/tutor, because the 2 tutors that we have hired are certified teachers and retired from Bedford. Current data based on the combined quarterly benchmark data for math, 58% of our students in grades 3 through 5 passed the math benchmark assessments for quarter 1 and quarter 2. And based on, I know we talked about IXL with Ms. Dellis, quarter 2 data for 2nd grade, 65% of the students met the IXL benchmark for math in comparison to the 62% in the fall. So that's growth. We're pleased with that. Virginia Studies, goal 4 is to meet or exceed the Virginia Studies SOL pass percentage rate of 70% in May of 2024. The action steps are just a couple of what we are taking is that Virginia Studies teachers are developing lesson plans that include the standard, the daily objective, the essential knowledge and skills, teacher-led instruction, student learning activities, and daily assessments that align with the standards of learning. Somewhat of like what's called a gradual release model. I do, we do, you do. And that's what you see in a lot of our classrooms. And Virginia Studies teachers will implement those BCPS pacing guides for Virginia Studies as indicated. And current data, based on the mid-year benchmark data, 72% of our fourth grade students passed the Quarter 2 Virginia Studies benchmark. Yay! Which is an improvement of 23% of points when compared to Quarter 1 assessment. And goal 5, chronic absenteeism. Bedford Elementary will decrease the percentage of students in grades 2 through 5 who are considered chronically absent from 18% in May of 2023 to 12% in May of 2024. Action steps, a couple of those. Students who attended 90% of the school days during quarter 2, 3, and 4 will be announced on the morning announcements. And then parents of students who have 8 or more unexcused absences have been meeting with what is new this year, the Bedford Engagement for Truancy Student Truancy Team, to develop an individual plan to help decrease any further student absences, which have already been taking place. And I'm excited to share too that at this time when this slide was created, at that moment in time, only 5% of our students at Bedford Elementary are chronically absent.
Way to go.
Hey. Some of the best practices that we are including for science is implementation of STEM resource classes for all grade levels that align with classroom instruction, and that was new last year to Bedford Elementary. We had never had a STEM class before, so we love that. And additional hands-on experiments aligned to the standards of learning, for example, electricity, force and motion, and more. And those 2 pictures there show you some examples of experiments in action. For reading, beginning second semester, students are receiving in-person tutoring by a licensed teacher beyond the classroom teacher. The tutor is using quarterly benchmark data to provide small group or one-to-one instruction. Classroom teachers have received additional training in small group instruction and are meeting the needs of students through small groups. And reading specialists have broadened their intervention methods to include standards-based skills based on the science of reading, as Ms. Dulles mentioned. Math, full implementation of Zearn, which is individualized math instruction. Beginning second semester, students are receiving, again, in-person tutoring by a licensed teacher and also beyond the classroom teacher. The tutor's also using quarterly benchmark data and monitoring Zearn progress to address student weaknesses. And the tutor's providing small group or individual instruction to students struggling with current grade level concepts. So not only are they working to fill in the gaps from concepts that they may have missed in past grades, but then they're also focusing on the current concepts for this year. For Virginia Studies, the fourth grade team, under the direction of an experienced educator who knows Virginia Studies very well, they're collaboratively planning and implementing lessons aligned with the standards of learning. So she's really taken the lead on that, which I think shows in our data. Data analysis after each unit to provide reteaching and remediation as needed, and cross-curricular instruction using the new reading program when appropriate. So we're trying to align all of the content across all of the subject matters. And chronic absenteeism. School team meets monthly to explore attendance factors and develop solutions. Partners with outside agencies, families, and school personnel meet to develop strategies to support increased student attendance. And again, I mentioned before, the Bedford Engagement for Student Truancy Team collaborates with families to implement goals to improve attendance, and that would be our best team. Some overarching strategies. We have an instructional coach this year that we haven't had in a couple of years, and she is providing individual and grade level team support for unpacking the standards, teacher instruction, program support, and data analysis, and she's also provided guidance in the adoption of the new reading program. Teachers are implementing, as I mentioned, the gradual release model to instruct in all content areas. They're including small group instruction for math and reading to meet the needs of their students and to provide differentiated instruction. We have monthly and really weekly grade level meetings to include curriculum updates, sharing of resources, data analysis and discussion, and also sharing of expectations for instruction in our classroom environment. We do have a time in our daily schedule for 30 minutes for a Tiger time in the grade level master schedule. That's at every grade. And during that 30 minutes, that's when additional remediation is provided, and also when our tutors are trying to get in to help students as well. Our resource teachers this year are providing tutoring support in grades 3 through 5 in the general ed classrooms. So when they have any kind of open planning or time, they're assigned and they're going into grades 3 through 5 and consistently working with the teachers and the students in that grade to ensure that there's more than two people in the room or 2 adults to make sure that everybody is getting the support that they need. Division specialists are conducting classroom walkthroughs and providing targeted feedback to improve instruction. And our special education lead teacher for reading is observing special education teachers and providing individualized feedback based on implementation of the intervention system, which is the Sunday system. And I know you probably have questions, but I do want to thank you for your time and letting me share about our wonderful school, staff, and students.
Questions? Mr. Knight?
Thank you for your presentation. Just a couple of questions.
Sure.
On slides 7 and 9, you talked about the Q1 and Q2 combined pass rates for 4th and 5th grade. And you mentioned that, they look low, 48 and 56% for science and I think 58% for math. But you did say that those numbers compared to the past are not, are actually maybe better. Do you have the numbers from last school year, Q1, Q2 to compare to?
I don't have them right with me, but I can get them for you.
Okay. I'm just curious to see,
Yes.
instead of waiting all the way to the end of the year to see how you're comparing to last year, but if you have those numbers for this year's Q1, Q2, it'd be a good check against last year's Q1, Q2 to see the progress.
Absolutely. I have this year's, but I can certainly get you last year's.
Okay. That's it. That's the only question.
Mr. Holbrook?
Yeah, as far as the pass rate, so the students that don't pass these tests, they're reassessed in the second quarter, correct?
Correct. Well, and the teachers do a lot of formative or intermittent check-ins to make sure that the students are mastering the skills. And what happens is, what this looks like is, if let's say I am struggling with a skill, so then my teacher or the tutor is going to give me a little bit more instruction, and then I'm going to do a quick formative assessment to check in to make sure that I'm understanding it. They also are using some math computer programs that also monitor and show us if students are mastering skills. And if students aren't mastering skills, they can't move any farther until they show mastery. So it's a combination of a human, the teacher, and also a computer program.
Gotcha. Well, that was my next question. If they don't, pass, what happens? I mean, do they get held back for that school year, next year?
You mean at the end of the year, if they take an SOL test and they don't pass?
Right.
No, students are not, we don't typically retain students based on that one data point of an SOL test. However, going into the next year, those teachers look at the skills from their previous, we have all of that data, and they get what's called a student detail by question. So we can look at a report and for each specific student and say, okay, if Marty didn't pass this, I know she struggled with, for example, reading graphs, then I'm gonna provide her with additional support to read graphs so that she understands it before she's assessed on it again.
Okay. Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great.
Anything? Any questions? Ms. Purvis?
So I had a question. I know that the 23% improvement on English, it looks like, is that correct? For new studies? Oh,
I'm gonna look at
Virginia
your-
studies. Sorry, that was Virginia studies. So reading, okay. I know you have a new science curriculum, correct? And a new English?
This is the second year for our science curriculum, and for reading, it is a new program, yes.
Okay. And I understand for the reading and English program, there's a learning curve for the teachers. I've been a
Absolutely.
teacher with that situation, and I know that, so overall, you're seeing that it's a positive thing, though, on the English curriculum? You're seeing better results with the kids as they're implementing it more and more?
Yes, and also making sure that they're aligning what's in the standards of learning, because that's our curriculum. That's what we need to make sure, that's what we're teaching from, and we're using Benchmark Advance, the new reading programs, to make sure that we hit all of those standards and skills. And if we don't, our teachers are aware, and then they're filling in with additional materials as needed.
So your science is also new, correct?
Science was new last year, I believe.
Last year. And so I would think, I mean,
sorry.
this is supposed to be a better science program. I haven't really seen it yet
Mm-hmm.
or heard much about it. So I would think that if it's a better program, you'd have a little bit more of a jump as well on that one. And what is your assessment on that? Again, I'm putting you on the spot.
That's okay. No, I can tell you because it was great to get the new science program last year, and the teachers are loving it. One of the things that they're loving about it, and the kids enjoy it too, it's a textbook, but not like a traditional textbook. It has a lot of interesting pictures and photos. It also gives the teachers a lot of resources about how to implement hands-on experiments that
Hands-on
they
support,
traditionally would have had to have gone and researched somewhere
great.
else. And so it comes with everything you need. And I feel like that's why our teachers have been excited to do it, because there hasn't been so much background work on their part to get everything together. It comes with it already.
So because we've had it for a year now, are you expecting these science, these science scores to be higher than?
Absolutely, yes. And even just watching the kids, assessments are great and they give you great data, but it's also important to see what kids do on a daily basis and what those formative assessments look like and what we're seeing in the classrooms. And so this gives us one picture, but there's a whole lot more pictures behind it.
Well, I love the hands-on. That's so important, especially for science. It's like, why does this matter, But actually
Absolutely.
seeing it, that's awesome.
And you're more than welcome to come see it. We would
I would
love
like
for you
to
to
do
see
that,
it.
actually. I want to see it.
Yes, thank you for your presentation. I love your energy.
Oh, thanks.
Most of these, the statistics that you've given us are pass rates of the entire classroom. So the
Yes.
kids that then get separated out and get remedial work and get private tutorial one-on-one,
Yes.
do you have any data that shows how that is working, that subset of students, and their improvement through those tutorials and remedial work?
What I can tell you now informally is that, without anything in front of me, is that looking at some of our students' progress in what they're doing with the tutor and also in the new math program that's been implemented for the All in Virginia, how that's set up is if students are not mastering a skill, they're flagged. And what happens is our teachers and our tutors are monitoring those flags. They then get additional support by an in-person, whether it's the teacher or the tutor. Then they're able to go back on that program and try again. And they can't move on until that flag is gone. So informally, I can tell you, yes, I think it's working, because I know we're not seeing kids sitting with flags day after day after day, because the adults are intervening when they see those flags pop up. I know it's hard to describe when you can't see the program, but there's an alert immediately. I think it's called a tower alert immediately. And so that's what the teachers and the tutors are responding to. Then the kids get back on that program after they've received that in-person support, and then they're able to move on. When we see that a tower alert is there and a flag is not moving, that's when we pull kids out.
Okay.
Besides the daily formative assessments that teachers observe, because teachers are using formative assessments, just checking on what they are taught in that day and that lesson, but then they're also using checklists. So they're looking at observing and watching what students are doing and keeping a running checklist of what they see as well.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions?
One. Thank you so much. We always tend to talk about what are we doing for remediation, and obviously it's important that we're pulling everyone, giving them every opportunity to be successful. What do we do with the high achievers?
So our high achievers is through, and I part of our TAG courses. So our second grade students actually currently right now are being assessed, all of second grade, to see what students would meet the criteria to be enrolled in TAG. classes. And so they meet every week. So some of those higher learners are met that way. We have teachers who are differentiating. So just like they differentiate for students who may not be meeting a standard, we also have students who are going beyond the standard. And so those teachers are differentiating, whether it's doing novel studies because they don't need as much time on getting a reading support, so they're going above with novel studies. Also, any kind of additional projects that are available. And then we do have some programs that move kids on beyond because it's completely differentiated and individualized. So it's a combination of projects given by the teacher and in class, and also computer.
And that's like they would also be getting, so if they're doing really well in second grade, they're starting to get some work that's more third grade level?
Absolutely.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yes, we even have a student or two they're literally going to third grade for math now.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
One more, Mr. Okay, Mr. Knight?
One more question.
Sure.
So I'm a big fan of PE, and I noticed that in your slide you talked about how you had the parent PE night, you had the buddy PE night. You may have said that the teacher of the year was a PE teacher. Did you say that, or no? Did I misunderstand you there? The teacher of the year?
Yes, it's
Was-
Beth
was
Eisner, our
PE?
PE teacher.
Right. So there's 3 focal points on PE, which I really appreciate that. I think that PE is undervalued. It's so great for our kids, not just their bodies, but their minds, right?
Sure.
But I'm assuming that you're working according to the same, I guess you could say, standard that the other elementary schools are working with, and that's PE once a week right
Yes,
now?
yes. Well, our students have PE once a week. That buddy PE then includes one additional PE during the week, and then we have 20 minutes of recess every day.
Okay, so they're getting 2 PE days because of the buddy PE?
Yes, but
And-
not every week. It rotates.
Okay.
Yes,
So some weeks, but,
yes,
and then 20 minutes of recess.
every day. Yes, sir.
And the PE teacher is shared with some other schools, or no?
She's all Mars.
Okay. All right. That's it. Thank you.
And just to give you an idea, too, of beyond just PE outside or on a playground, a lot of our teachers also incorporate movement activities within the classroom. For example, today I was in a third grade math class that they were focusing, or social studies, I'm sorry, they were focusing on the country of Mali. And so they had scoot cards around the room. And so the teacher had shared to me when I was in there that she said, right after lunch, it's hard to get everybody to focus and pull them all back. So she said, I implemented this scoot activity. So she said, you're going to see, it's going to look like a little bit chaotic, but it's controlled chaos and there's a purpose. So just watch. And so cards with review about the country Mali and everything that they had learned was taped all over the room, like tables, walls, and everywhere. And so the kids, they were ecstatic. I mean, they got their clipboards and they got their chart, and then they were just moving all over the room, and you didn't have to go in any certain order, and it did kind of look a little bit chaotic, but it was exactly what they needed, was a moment to just let everything out and then bring it back to a focus. And also they'll do yoga videos sometimes if they feel like kids need a break and a chance to refocus, or any kind of movement videos, whether sometimes it's dancing videos, things like that, just to give them a chance to get the wiggles out and then come back and be able to maintain their focus.
That's great. I hope that you continue that, and the teachers that are doing it encourage the other teachers to do it as well. I really appreciate that.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank
Really
you
appreciate
very
it.
much.
Yep. All right, so we are going to our recognition of students and staff time with Ms. Borak.
Mr. Chairman, Vice Chair, and Dr. Bergen, will you please come forward to greet our students and staff? All right, the first group of students and staff recognized tonight have been waiting to shine in the spotlight since fall of 2023. Due to their love for running, competitions, and life in general, we have not been able to celebrate them yet. In November of 2023, the Liberty High School girls cross country team, along with their coaches, Mr. and Mrs. Milton, took home the title of Virginia High School League State Champions. So let's welcome the ladies and coaches to the stage. Since there are a few of them, if we could hold the applause until the whole team is on stage. Our state champions are as follows: Brianna Adams, You guys all want to stand up, so you don't have to stand up each time. And you can make your way over there. Ella Blair. Haley Clark. Claire Greendow. Mary Malcolm. Natalie Powers. And I must not have wrote one down. That's on me. It was written down. This is Alexis Plaster. And then we have their coaches, Ruth Ann Milton and Andrew Milton. So now please join me in congratulating them on this fantastic achievement.
Great job, guys. Gals.
Thank you, guys. All right, we do have large groups here tonight, so. The second group of students and staff recognized tonight are used to being on stage. Cavalier Theater has competed with VHSL since 2012. In those over 10 years, they have won 8 district championships, 6 region championships, 5 state runner-ups, and 3 state champions. It should be no surprise that The Green Bird, a Cavalier Theater one-act play directed by Spence and Nikki White in 2023, was the VHSL district runner-up, the Region 40 champion, and the Class 4 state runner-up. Also, they placed 4th in the Virginia Theater Association, which is a statewide event that consists of teams of 5 from each high school that compete in timed activities involving lights, sound, set building, costume construction, rigging, and electrical management. As you can see, it took many cast and crew to make the Green Bird successful, and we'd like to recognize each of their accomplishments with Cavalier Theater. Again, please hold your applause until all cast and crew and directors are on stage. First, we have Olivia Artman. She was the VTA Tech Olympic state champion. We have Langley Case, the VHSL Region 40 Best Actor. Anna Dodge. Mimi Gaiman. We have Hill Gooch. We have Maddie Howard, who is VHSL District Outstanding Actor, VHSL Region 40 Honorable Mention Actor, Class 4 State Outstanding Actor, and VTA State Best Performer. Chris Kolb. Autumn Loy, VTA Tech Olympic State Champion. Bella Marciano, Izzy Mistretta, who is the VHSL Region 40 Honorable Mention Actor and the Class 4 State Outstanding Actor. Sophie Nichols, Aubrey Pack, Anna Rackley, who is the VTA Tech Olympic State Champion. Ryan Sloan, who is the VHSL Region 40 Honorable Mention Actor, VTA State Best Performer, and Tech Olympic State Champion. Aaron Tinsley, who is Region 40 Best Actor and VTA State Best Performer. And all of this cannot be possible without the direction and guidance of Spence and Nikki White. Mr. White recently received the National Federation of State High School Associations Outstanding Theater Award as well. This is the second year of this award being given. And with these accolades, we can all see why you were chosen. Please join me in congratulating Cavalier Theater along with their directors for all of these outstanding accomplishments. Just don't kick IT's TV off. It'll be all right. All right, ready? 3, 2, 1.
Theater state.
All right. Congratulations. All right. Chair, Vice Chair, and Dr. Bergen, can I get you guys to stay up there for a second? Yeah. No, we're not done. I need you to stay. BCPS students and staff aren't the only ones being recognized tonight for their contributions and accomplishments. When you guys sat down today, all you board members have certificates at your seats. Would you like to join the chairman and vice chair and Dr. Bergen on stage for recognition of School Board Appreciation Month?
We have to bring our certificate.
Governor Youngkin recently shared his proclamation recognizing February as School Board Appreciation Month. School board members are elected to represent the interests of students, teachers, parents, and other stakeholders and play a vital role in ensuring that students in Bedford County have access to a high-quality, rigorous education and to best uphold educational excellence in our schools. School boards are the governing bodies responsible for the oversight, success, and effectiveness of school systems across the Commonwealth. Here in Bedford County, on behalf of all the staff, we would like to thank you for all your dedication and hard work making decisions that affect the present and future lives of our students and chart a path to prepare them to be competitive in their lives academically and more. And now I'm going to make you stand up there for just one more second while we recognize somebody else in the room. I know. I'm sorry. Sure. You want one of just you all before? All right. Also in February, we celebrate School Board Clerk Appreciation Week. The goal of this week is to build awareness with the role board clerks play in assisting school board members, superintendents, and our school community. Miss Diana Johnson, are you not going to go up there? Yes, she is the clerk who organizes these meetings, keeps accurate records, and is responsible for much more than you see here. Without a doubt, we have the best clerk in the Commonwealth. Without her attention to detail, ability to adapt to changes, and knowledge of all things school board related, we would not be able to ensure the success of Bedford County Public Schools and our students. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. promise I'm not talking.
Next, we will go to public comment time. The public comment portion of tonight's agenda is limited to 40 minutes. Speakers are asked to state their name and voting district. The school board is here to listen to your comments, but will not engage or respond to speakers during this 40-minute period. Please remember that this is a public meeting and that we expect all speakers to refrain from any foul, profane, abusive, or hateful language during their comments or any time while in attendance during this meeting. We also ask that speakers keep their remarks objective and about the school in nature. Please keep all comments limited to matters related to the public schools, and any comments that are harassing or amount to a personal attack against any identifiable individual, whether board member or staff or student, or having the potential to cause unnecessary delay or disruption to this meeting are prohibited. This is a public meeting for public matters. If a speaker is not present when their name is called, we will proceed with the next name on the list. An individual who has not signed up to speak may not substitute for that time slot. Individuals will have 4 minutes to address the board. An alarm will sound when an individual has 30 seconds remaining, and a second alarm will sound when the allotted 4 minutes have expired. When this second alarm sounds, please discontinue speaking and allow the next person in line to come to the podium. Should you be unable to finish your comments, please send or give them to Ms. Johnson, and she will give them to board members. Please do not adjust the microphone at the podium as it has been positioned for optimum audio quality. There are no slots signed up for tonight, but we do have 40 minutes set aside, so if there is anyone here who would like to speak, please come forward. Okay, we have somebody.
Morning, Board. Christian Sneed, District 7. It was here in this auditorium about 2 years ago in April of 22 that Randy Dunton from the Legacy Education spoke about their offerings to our seniors. Recently, I had the opportunity to engage with the students at both Lynchburg high schools on behalf of Legacy. These students were interested in becoming transportation professionals. I was fortunate enough to share my journey, my opportunities available, and the general information about those fields to the kids. They were passionate about it. They want to be truck drivers. They want to work in the trucking industry. Yes, I actually even put in a little shameless plug in for the former chairwoman, Ms. Kirby, that Bedford County is still looking for school bus drivers. As a father of a junior at Jefferson Forest, I'm thankful for the amazing influences of the teacher and staff who constantly encourage our kids, like Mr. Miller, who's both relatable and available to everybody. He'll be greatly missed by Bedford County. My encourager 25 years ago was a teacher and coach named Mr. Palco. He took the time to invest in me. Little did he know that those lessons in the hallway and after class, even the hard truths, would be paying dividends 25 years later. And while I was fortunate to come from a loving home with supportive parents, sometimes it takes somebody outside of that circle to invest in you, help direct your steps, and recognize your value to move in the right direction, because normally that's the hardest path forward. We all have someone that's influenced our lives for the better. I got to see this firsthand several years back when Mark Mathai first joined BSTC as an instructor. He was passionate to give the kids the very best of opportunities, driven to raise the academic bar by achieving accreditation, and most importantly, he invested in the kids and his community. One year, he invited our business to be a part of his annual car show that benefited the local Bedford Pregnancy Center. It was a great event, but what I learned was how much he interacted and poured into those kids. And I've always envied Mark's passion, as it illustrated that he was trying to prepare his students for their very best future. Now, as an employer, it's incredibly hard to find good qualified employees these days who are trained, prepared, and don't have attendance problems. Legacy helps in all these areas, preparing our outgoing students with life skills, employment maturity, and workforce readiness, helping them stay on time and on task. This leads to economic empowerment. And Legacy helps their students overcome these hurdles in what I call the meals and wheels barrier. Things like transportation, finances, and childcare. Barriers that I never got to experience growing up, but many of my friends around me did. After all, it's the coaches that invest in their athletes with the rides to practice, the food that they can sometimes bring to them, and the life lessons off the quarter field make the biggest impact. In the workplace, you get paid for the value you bring, but you can't ask for value that you don't possess or value that you don't know how to access. That is what Legacy steps in and turns the personal deficits into positive attributes. We take a lot of this for granted, eye-to-eye contact when someone's speaking, showing up early, staying late, having a positive attitude, saying yes, sir, yes, ma'am. They also work on resume building, mentorship, interview preparation, and interpersonal skills. See, Legacy isn't just a job placement firm, but they find students' passions and then they mobilize a plan to achieve that goal. Legacy just doesn't offer employment positions that need to be filled, but they find out what motivates the individual or student, and they channel that energy towards that end goal. Legacy students follow their passion, not to fill a position. Legacy also helps with the further education, specific job placement, and this all makes it more attractive to employers. So my request to the board, and I'm going way over, and administration is to visit Legacy's offering in Bedford County seniors, just like Lynchburg, Campbell, and Charlotte counties. I'd ask that you reach out to the participating schools, maybe stop by the one classes and see for yourself. You obviously have to perform your own due diligence, and then you may be left with the same impression that I have, that invest in our students in their most vulnerable time when they leave these buildings and the influences they've had for 12 years. Personally, I feel unless we are promising a pathway for every single student who's graduating, we should keep every single option on the table. So I leave you with the departing statistic that Randy had mentioned back in April of 22. 85% of the jobs come from our network. Are we doing absolutely everything to expand the network to give our children the access to the best opportunities and prepare them for the brightest future? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Sneed. Do we have any other speakers? Anyone else? I guess I could call on people. All right, with that, I will close public comment. Which takes us back to staff reports not addressed before our 6 o'clock time frame. So we will go to 2.03 2.02 Q2 benchmark data.
Yes, Mr. Hill, board members, several weeks ago you all received a Wednesday memo that detailed the results of our second quarter benchmark assessments. And we heard some reference to some of those assessments from the schools in their presentations here tonight. Those results continue to show us that we have a great deal of learning loss we need to recover. We have a great deal of learning that needs to occur between now and the end of this school year. Also in that memo, in addition to the results, we outlined the action steps that have been implemented by our central support team since first receiving those results. So I've asked Dr. Woodford and other members of our instructional team to be available here this evening to further review this information, not just for you again from the Wednesday memo, but also for our viewing public, and to entertain your questions. Dr. Woodford.
Thank you, Dr. Bergen. With several new members on our school board, I want to provide a little information about when we give benchmark assessments and why they are given. At the end of each 9-week grading period, teachers in our core classes give students a benchmark assessment. Benchmark tests given throughout the year provide information to guide instruction and set up students for success on end-of-the-year summative assessments and high-stakes tests, such as our SOL test that we give in the spring. Last year, our division joined a consortium, the Comprehensive Instructional Program, or we've referred to it before as CIP, with other school divisions in Virginia. This consortium works with teachers in approximately 50 school divisions throughout our state, including Bedford. We work together to create pacing guides and assessments that can help teachers, schools, and the district office staff target needed supports. Earlier tonight, when Ms. Dellis was talking about the different types of assessments used over the last few years, one of the things we realized was at the division level, we don't have common sets of benchmarks. And so that's why we joined the consortium last spring, so we could start really monitoring our data to support our schools. These benchmarks from CIP are highly aligned with state curriculum, and they're extremely rigorous compared to our previous benchmarks we were giving that our teachers and ourselves were making together as a team. And they allow us to view student results relative to other school divisions to help us make good predictions about what may happen in the spring on SOL test. As a way of reminder, benchmark assessments are only one test given to students. Grades 3 through 8 are required by the DOE to give growth assessments in reading and math 3 times a year. Our younger students in 1st through 3rd grade are given the PALS literacy screener, and our pre-K and kindergarten students take the VKRP screener, which is the PALS screener along with a math and social skills screener. Our older students in high school are going to be taking a writing test in just a few weeks in March, along with our 5th grade and our 8th grade students who will be taking a test that the DOE is going to use to see if they're going to continue with that writing test to test and norm a future test. So the students won't be graded on it, but it will be used to create future tests in writing. With all of this, our teachers also are giving quizzes and tests to determine the immediate needs in the classroom that can be addressed on a daily basis. And I want to just say right from the start, we know that we still have work to do. We don't come to you tonight to say that we have all the answers. What we do know is that we are making gains and we are pressing forward, and we will continue to make adjustments, and we will continue to do interventions, and we'll continue to focus on best practices, and we will continue to examine our data and our programs to see what is working. To provide some context for the data on this slide, all of these slides you've already seen in the Wednesday memo I sent, so I'm just putting them up so you can reference them as we go through them. In this first slide, I've listed the SOL pass rate from last spring, and then the quarter 1 and quarter 2 benchmark scores. It's important to remember that with the exception of secondary English benchmarks, these benchmarks are not growth measures. We did not expect to see growth in pass rates from every subject. So if we have a 60 in the first quarter, we are not necessarily looking for a 70 in the second quarter. These scores reflect how students performed on particular content within the 9 weeks. In other words, we again are not really looking to show a higher score in the second quarter. What we're really looking to see is how much of the content was mastered and how much is being retained. As a general rule, we expect pass rates to be a bit lower than actual SOL scores at the end of the year. Our team continues to be concerned about middle school 7th and 8th grade math performance. While we are beginning to see some improvement in our 6th grade math, our 7th and 8th grade is still concerning. Our middle schools have started the high-intensity tutoring math program with Zern. We are hearing that they feel like the data is looking like it is promising. However, we have not pulled actual data from the start of January until now. We're trying to get our students used to the program, and we'll start looking at that data as it comes in. All of our history benchmark scores are very promising as compared to last year's spring SOL scores. Elementary science scores are strong, which is a positive indicator that many of our elementary schools will improve on that academic indicator that kept them as a level 2 for accreditation. We are currently changing the science and history sequence for our middle and high school classes, which we've shared with you previously when we've talked about program of studies. With these changes, we are focused on building stronger foundations for our middle schoolers so that they're more successful in their high school courses. In the Wednesday memo, our team provided all of the supportive steps being taken to respond to assessment results, and the instruction and special education teams developed plans immediately as they started seeing Q2 data coming in. This actually started in December as some of our schools were finishing up second quarter instruction at the end of December. Our supervisors started meeting with school staff. They looked at making adjustments in pacing guides. They looked at what type of interventions were needed immediately. The division staff has met with every principal to go over their mid-year scores and to look at evaluations of how their school is progressing, and we've noted areas of concern with data, and we've also celebrated improvements that we've seen. The All in Virginia math tutoring began at the 1st of January, and the reading tutoring should be starting next week. Reading specialists are currently being hired at the middle schools, and this past Monday, we had targeted professional development for teachers, which was a huge success. Thanks to all of the supervisors and our teachers who led sessions, and especially Dr. Weiss, who put it all together. The next few slides are the quarter two benchmarks divided by subgroups. So this slide is our elementary, middle, and high school math data divided by subgroups. As you know, our focus this year has really been on improving our special education subgroup data, which has been low, but it is seeing improvement. And so we're very excited about that because we have had concerns about our special education performance. This next slide is looking specifically at the elementary and middle school English data for subgroups. Please note that the high school English classes are going to take a cumulative benchmark in just a few weeks. Our 11th graders are preparing for their writing test, which they need in order to get that verified credit for graduation. So we've got them focused on that, and they'll take a cumulative benchmark at the end of the third 9 weeks. Our special education data indicates slight improvements. We do note that we have some concerns at the 5th and 7th grade levels for our students in special education. And our supervisors in special education are now doing combined intervention plans with our general ed supervisors. They're going into classrooms, looking at pacing. Actually, they've been teaching some lessons and working with teachers to get us back on track. This final slide is our science and history data. We had some significant gains in our special education data for these two subjects, especially in 6th grade science and 4th grade Virginia studies. We are excited. We feel really good about our science scores going into the spring for elementary schools. We feel like our new curriculum has really helped improve classroom performance, and that our schools are feeling very confident there. In the January 24th Wednesday memo, I did invite any board members with questions to call or email me. I have not received any questions regarding this data. However, I did bring Dr. Trosper and Mrs. Jennings with me tonight in case there are some questions you did not think of after you were looking over the memo. And as you've heard our schools speak tonight and looked at the data again, if you have any questions, we're happy to try to answer them for you.
Any questions?
I just have one question.
Okay. Mr. Knight?
Similar to the question I was asking earlier about, and I didn't think about this when I read it before.
That's okay.
Since you're looking at the benchmark in order to kind of see where you're at for the end of the year, is it not valuable to look at this year's benchmark versus last year's benchmark as a kind of a judge to see how you're preparing for the end of the year? Is that valuable?
Did you want to?
That's always a valuable comparison, but one of the things that we did was adopt new benchmarks this year. So by joining the consortium, this is a totally new set of benchmarks.
Okay.
The value of the benchmarks that we're giving now is there's a high level of predictability. They've been vetted by teachers from across approximately 50 school divisions, as opposed to the ones we've given the past few years, which are written by our supervisors with the input of a small number of teachers. So we just feel like they're better quality. And so we can compare, but I'm not sure it's really helpful because it's not the same benchmark.
Okay, so if you were using the same benchmark next year, then you could compare. And then I guess the other question as a follow-up then, since it's been vetted, and basically what I think what you're saying is, if, just to throw numbers out, if I have a 70% on my benchmark, I'm likely going to have a 80% on the end of the year SOL or whatever. Is there a formula there, or is it
That's generally correct. One of the advantages of being a part of that consortium is there's one person that runs data. That's essentially what he does all day for the divisions. And he can produce charts going back to the past 5 years for every quarter, for every subject, and say if a student scored in this grade band, so if they score between a 60 and 70%, they're this percent likely to pass the SOL. And so that is really one of the advantages. So it's not if you get a 70 on the benchmark, you think you're going to get a 70 on the SOL. Every subject is different. Every subject is unique. And so our teachers know that data.
Okay.
It's hard to get large-scale data to share kind of from a big picture, but our teachers do have access, so that helps them identify students that they need to work with.
So there's like a flag type thing that says, on your benchmark, you only hit this, so we're not going to be ready for the SOL. We got to remediate.
Correct.
And, okay, all right.
Another thing that I think is helpful for us is when we start to get that data, we get it by school, by subject, we get it by teacher, and it flags like our schools and teachers who are doing really well and who are kind of falling in the middle and who are in a concerning category. And so we've started hooking those teachers who are doing really well up with our teachers who are struggling, making those connections. It just gives us instant data that we can respond to, which we haven't really had prior to last spring. So it's giving us the tools we need to see data and react quickly.
Right, like in engineering, a lot of times we can't really have an exact number that we're looking for, but I can say, I've got 10 of these items, and 7 of them look pretty similar and the other 3 don't. So I'm assuming that you do a similar thing with your students across the various schools that are the same age, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Mr. Oberton?
It says, on your chart, it says BCPS division number of students, 30, just say for the Asian subgroup. It says total tested, 32. So what is, and I noticed that's on several of them.
Oh, sorry, it's the number that passed. I was trying to look at it. So
So the top number's
the top number is the number who passed, and the bottom is how
Gotcha.
many we have.
Number of
So
students that passed,
in
okay.
this particular one at the top, we have 32 total students tested in the Asian category and 25 passed.
I think the
Okay.
column got cut off.
Yeah,
The
it must
past
have.
part.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I
No,
got
I used my calculator because I had the same question. I'm like, that must be a percentage of pass, but.
Yeah.
it. Okay.
Any other questions, Mr. Daniels?
When it comes to special ed, everyone's different, and there's IEPs and everything else. Can you maybe go into some of the things that we do a little bit different there, either on helping the students? Like, I know it's very individual, but if you could just go into that, I think that would help.
Yeah, of course. So we have purchased 2 supplemental programs this year that we've given to all the schools and to all of our special education teachers. One of those is the Sunday system, which is a reading system that takes on the Orton Gillingham approach, where it's that multisensory approach to reading, to supplement students that maybe have more difficulties with reading or we need to intervene at certain areas that they need that intervention. We also have purchased the Moving with Math program, which is geared for students in special education, and it's actually aligned with the standards, but it uses that hands-on approach to learning math, as well as learning those standards, and that again are those pieces that we can supplement. We have 2 lead teachers, one's for reading and one's for math, and I know you heard Ms. Brock talk about that from Bedford Elementary School, that will go into classrooms and work with teachers and individual students and help develop plans for them. We also have a lead teacher for math that does the same thing. So, and the lead teacher for math is new this year that we were able to rearrange my department that we were able to have. So we're trying to provide a lot of training to our staff. We're trying to provide supplemental programs to remediate and work with those students. And also, like you said, an IEP, we have to have that specially designed instruction. What do they need support in? What are they missing? And how are we going to work on those goals?
Yeah, and I'm sure it's just, it really seems to be such a moving target because each year IEPs change and new kids come in. So I think it's really difficult when you're looking at those percentages to understand what's actually included in there. So I just wanted to just call that out. And thank you very much. The other question I had was on the CIP, and I know I've asked this, and it's just kind of follow-up. it's great to see that we have 80% and 100% in some things, but how does Bedford County rank in this consortium? I think I really just think it's really important to know, because we could go, if school divisions are doing not as well as us, I would expect that they would be calling you and saying, what are you guys doing? And just as we could do that with, others. So that was just.
Yeah, and that's a good question. Again, one of the value of being a part of this consortium is we do get relative data, and we're able to see where we stand. And so this is broken down by test, by core subject area, even by teacher.
Okay.
And so one of the trends that my team looks at, we look at pass rates, and that's obviously an important data point, but we really look at those percentile rankings compared to where we are with those about 50 divisions. And that gives us a good idea of where we are. So sometimes the percentage, for example, might drop, but we look and say, well, the other divisions, we actually outperform them. And so what it does is it tiers us by third, so there's a top, a middle, and a bottom tier. And typically, if we're in that middle to top tier, we feel pretty good about that. And if they're not, that gives us an indicator we need to go offer more support.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Actually really glad you asked that question, because Dr. Trosper and I have been looking at some data, looking at trends and where we fall at like the top 5 school divisions in every SOL test, and then where we fall in that category. And so we're putting together a Wednesday memo to give that to you. And one of the things that Dr. Trosper and I were lucky enough to do is we looked to see which schools in the consortium were really scoring high, and we have been reaching out to those superintendents and those directors of instruction, and we actually met with Galax City, who had tremendous gains in just 1 year. And so they have given us some ideas of things that we could implement next year that might help us get everybody on the same page. I think for a few years we've all been using different programs and what we think works, and I think with Mrs. Jennings and her special ed department saying, here are 2 programs, they're looking at the data, they're looking to say, how is this working for kids who are using it? It gives us more of an understanding of what's happening, what's working, what's not working, and it's putting, every school is kind of doing similar things, especially with assessment, so we can see where our, what's going really, really well and what we're struggling with, so.
Any other questions?
Do you have that data on the new curriculums we've used at all? The English and the science, right? Is that, those are the 2?
Correct, yes. So English is really, really new. So what we'll do is the curriculum, so the curriculum and textbooks are somewhat different. So when we think about curriculum, we're talking about what are the SOLs, what are the things that have to be taught. We measure those through SOL test. So I think what we are seeing with our new textbooks is they are good supplemental resource, and people are using them solidly, and we have fidelity. And as we get better with that, we should see our reading scores go up. We should see our PAL scores go up. So the assessment for those programs are really resting in the assessments we do already. Everything from the state, our growth assessments, our SOLs, our PALS assessments. So we'll be looking at those in particular to see, where we had big gains. We still have a lot of learning on our English, text. Our teachers are just getting comfortable with it, just getting comfortable with the small group pieces. They're still doing some of what they were doing before and learning the new curriculum. I think we're going to see a big jump in science this year with our new science curriculum. So we will definitely have more information about that as we move into the spring and we start seeing assessments come back.
So I know you're talking about changing out the math and the history, is that correct? At some point, maybe?
We'll be adopting new textbooks. We'll start looking at math textbooks next year to adopt the following year.
So you have nothing planned new for September?
Oh, no, ma'am.
Not yet, okay. I think that those evaluations that you're looking at right now would be a good indication of what kind of curricula we want for that.
Agreed, yeah. And we're in the middle, too, of SOLs changing for math. The standards have kind of taken a change, and so English standards are changing and math standards, and I think history will probably be updated. So we'll have to make sure we get something aligned to that also for our teachers.
Thank you.
So you talk about the benchmark. So how do we, Bedford County, stop the benchmark from continuously changing? Because if the target is over here and we're shooting for that and then you move it over here, we're never going to meet that target. So is the benchmark changing a decision that Dr. Bergen, your team is making? Is it state mandated? How do we say we're no longer changing the benchmark until we start hitting the one that we've set?
I think that's really what we said with CSIP last year. Prior to that, we were putting out some benchmarks at the division level. Some schools were saying, well, I'd rather do my own benchmarks. We found this group, they're not a for-profit. I mean, they literally just want to help schools do better. And they have validated their test year over year after year. So when they change, they're only making tweaks to make the questions better, more reliable, more valid. So next year, we'll be able to say, last year, first quarter, this was our benchmark score, and here's first quarter this year, and here's how they compare, and it will be an accurate comparison.
Right.
So by going with a group that is only tweaking what's already working very well, that, we won't have we'll have a more solid benchmark.
All right, so let me ask my question a different way.
Okay.
Who is setting the benchmark? And the reason why I'm asking is because we cannot continue to move the benchmark. So we've got a new
Oh, you're not talking
consortium.
about the benchmark test. You're talking about the standard.
The expectation.
I'm talking both, but I mean, we keep saying we're different benchmarks from last year to this year and the year before. So how do we say we're not moving that benchmark any further? Is that something that we, Bedford County, decide, or is that a state mandate of every other year we're changing the benchmark? So I'm trying to understand, is that something that we control, or is that something that someone else outside of us controls?
Can we clarify what benchmark means? Because I was thinking that the benchmark was a test that shows what they have achieved to that point, not a target. This is what they've done as opposed to what they're shooting for.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
We're referring, I think so, Mr. Hill, when we say benchmark assessment, you attach the word assessment to it. We're assessing what children have learned at this point, the benchmark. At this point, we've taught this, and have they learned this? So we give an assessment, we call it the CIP, the Comprehensive Instructional Plan or Program. They were new towards the latter half of last year, and we're using them consistently this year, and we're going to consistently use them moving forward. So we'll have those comparative data we can look at across our school division in comparison with other school divisions. We mentioned like Galax City and others.
Okay, so
There's another round of assessment, Mr. Hill, which the state introduced. You asked a question about the state. I want to go back to that.
Okay.
Last year, the state introduced another whole type of assessment, a beginning of the year and a middle of the year assessment in math and reading. And I was very concerned. We were all very concerned. We were over-assessing children. We were doing beginning of the year assessments. We were doing state assessments. We were doing our division level assessments. We had our teacher assessments. And so I've been, and other superintendents, lobbying hard to eliminate the state required beginning and middle of the year assessments because they weren't giving us any data from them, nothing actionable. We weren't getting results, so we couldn't look across the division like we can with the CIP. And there was a bill introduced in this last legislative session to eliminate those assessments. And I'm hopeful that that will transpire, and in the future, our students will not be taking beginning of the year and middle of the year state assessments. School divisions will make the determination about beginning of the year and middle of the year assessments, and we're using the CIP. Does that clarify? You were asking who makes these decisions. It's been the state and us, and we are trying to get out of the business of giving two assessments at the same time.
Right, but I want to make sure from a benchmark target perspective that we are being communicated with before it's changed again. Because what I'm hearing is, we changed it last year, we changed it the year before, we changed it this year, and maybe I'm misunderstanding the benchmark, but we need to make sure we're being consistent. If we're teaching to one benchmark and then we go change it.
Yeah, I think there is a combination of things that happened. Our platform we were using to give our benchmark assessments, that platform had very solid assessments in them that we had used for years. It pretty much, it went out of business and we weren't getting good assessments. We researched new platforms. We went to a platform we heard good things about, and it just was not good. We were not getting good data. It did not have enough questions. Teachers were frustrated. So we moved to Mastery Connect 2 years ago. That's the platform. We've now used, the consortium gives us questions and tests. We put that into the platform, so the quality is getting better. I think that's what they're talking about.
Okay.
That, some we made, some others made. These are the benchmarks that everyone will take from now until we stop using CIP, which will be sometime from now because it's just got such good data. As far as targets, the state sets the targets. What we are always looking for is to move over those targets. And you'll see where our principals are saying in their CSIPs, I want 83, I want 84%. We try to go higher than that. So we're always trying to push forward and up with our kids.
Okay. And of the CSIP consortium, remind me again how many school systems are in that?
It's 52.
I've seen 49 to 53, it just changed.
Okay, so it changed. So of that 49 to 53, my question, and maybe you don't know the answer, how many of those are currently above state standards? Because what I don't want to do.
We can get that to you.
Okay.
They are very high performing. They are. I can give you that information. We've got some charts to kind of
Okay.
say
Yeah.
where they are.
And I apologize for not calling you beforehand, but it just hit
okay.
me tonight as we were going through this.
I can
But
get that
what I
to
want
all
to
of
make
you
sure
in
we're
a minute.
not doing is if we've got 49 to 53 other counties that we're trying to compare ourselves to, if they're not at state standard, that's not what I want to be comparing us to. So I want to make sure we're truly Gay Lake City, and again, I don't know their numbers, but are they above state standard? And I've repeatedly said, I'm not just interested in state standard, I want to take it to the next level.
Right.
So I want to make sure, and I'm sorry, I think it was Mr. Daniels who asked, where do we compare, where do we fall in on the percentage? That is an answer I think is very important for us to understand. But if we're comparing ourselves to any of those 53, are they at state standard? And if they're not, why are we trying to compare ourselves to them? And, again, I'm not asking for an answer tonight, but I do want that information.
I can get that
Okay,
for you.
all right, perfect. And then the only other thing, Dr. Trosper, you mentioned the data analyst that is doing nothing but data. Is that person available to your team on a constant basis? And are they providing slides to you that say, Dr. Trosper, here's your problem area, and here's what you need to be addressing?
Yes, he's available. He runs meetings for principals, for division administrators. He takes phone calls from division staff, our principals. He is one of the most helpful individuals I honestly could say that I've worked with in terms of he understands good instruction. He understands what the data shows. He's also just a good source of information, as there's a lot of changes coming from the DOE right now, and so he's able to he has connections where he can share that and help us prepare for future changes as they come down.
And data is our friend.
Yes.
I mean, it's fact-based. So if we're getting data from this data analyst through this consortium, I think it behooves you guys to say, hey, this is the information that was shared with us. These are our problem areas, and here's what we're doing to address it. I think that's important for us to be, aware of that, and you guys sharing, hey, here's what we're learning and here's what, but also not to be on the negative side, but on the positive side of things that we're doing well. I think that information needs to be shared as well.
Sure.
But again, if we've got our hands available to a data analyst, I mean, that's not the first time you guys have heard me say data analyst, but I think that's important for us to be getting that information and for you to say, hey, here's what we got from being part of this consortium, and here's what we're doing to implement it.
Yes.
So, okay.
If I can answer one of those questions for you, and we're going to follow up with you, Mr. Hill, but I knew I had read this, and the magic of searching your phone, I can find. Dr. Woodford and I were communicating right after this gentleman, his name is Matt, came out with a report in December, which we talked about, which led to the Galax City visit. Galax City schools realized the greatest gains in state ranking across the entire Commonwealth of Virginia from 22 to 23 because of the predictability of these assessments. This is what drew us to them. So when students do well on these assessments, they're completely aligned to the standards of learning. There's no mystery here on how they're going to be assessed at the end of the year. We know the standards. So if we teach to the standard and we assess what we've taught and we see success throughout the school year, we have high confidence they're going to do well at the end of the year. So Galax City, the highest gains in the state of Virginia, which is why we're going to visit around.
And Dr. Woodford and I have had that conversation about going and seeing and visiting. So that's exactly what we need to be doing. But I'll go back to my question. Are they at or above the state standard?
Above.
Oh, they're above.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Highest gains, they're leading the pack.
Yeah.
Yeah, across the
Doing
state.
really well. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. That's good information. Ms. Purvis?
So my question, I guess, you said that you had already spoken with them and gotten some ideas of things you can implement. Is that what I?
Being Galax City.
Galax City.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry, I wasn't sure. Yes, we have. We met with the superintendent and the principal of the high school there. It's a very small, it's a city, a small school division. And honestly, it is, they are making sure that their goals are explicit, that they are being very explicit with teachers on the resources. When you don't pass test, it's usually because you're not teaching the content and you're not aligning that content to the assessment. And having worked in school improvement for over 20 years, if you can get that corrected, you will see gains. And so basically what they did, they made sure every teacher had not just the SOLs, but the in-depth curriculum. And they monitored that with benchmarks and class assessments, and they got on the same page. I know that sounds really simple, but I think that with so many schools, we haven't always been on the same page, and that's what we've tried really hard to do. Using the same textbooks, having the same intervention programs, making sure that we're all speaking the same language, we have the same high expectations for kids. And so that was really what they shared with us. And then just some ideas about how to engage high schoolers in chronic absenteeism and things like that.
Awesome. So nobody's ever gone to their school to do, or do you feel like that needs to happen at some point?
Right now, I'm not sure that it needs to happen. We were trying to get more of a, what did you do at the division level to see such huge gains with your staff? I think we definitely will start to ask, are there teachers out there? Are there schools out there? We have really used this data to find our own really, really good teachers. We've got some teachers who are just knocking it out of the park. I mean, a perfect example, we have a long-term sub who got the highest scores in civics in all of our middle schools, and she's a long-term sub. And so I was talking to her today about, what are you doing? Like, what? Like, what's happening? So we have connected some of our teachers who are struggling with those who are doing well. Those same teachers were the ones we called on to do professional development this week, and it was just, we're trying to just put it all together.
Yeah, we should take advantage of what we have
Exactly.
first.
We've
and
got some great teachers.
That's good. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, Mr. Knight?
Okay, just two quick follow-up questions. I know we were asking a lot here. Just to follow up on Mr. Hill's question about changing the benchmark. And that kind of went with my question on being able to compare, quarter one of this year to quarter one of last year. And you said they're not really apples to apples, right?
Right.
That's basically what you said. And then we started this long conversation about how it changes. So just to kind of confirm, before you would change the platform, let's call it, or the program, not just the mark, I'm not really talking about a number, I'm talking about the program. Before that would change again, there would be a conversation with the board, with how would that, because it seems like it's changed in the past, and maybe that was done just at your, within your office or however it was done. In the future, how will that take place if there was a need to change programs?
We actually, when we changed it the first time, because we weren't getting the support, our teachers were frustrated, we actually brought in our school-level facilitators at the time that we had and our instructional technology coaches. They looked at programs with us. We vetted them together. We got companies to show us kind of what they had to offer. And we talked to other school divisions. And then we moved over to a new platform with everyone kind of agreeing to that. And then it just turned out to be awful. The support was awful and everything. So there were really only about 2 platforms that had positive feedback on them, and Mastery Connects was one of them, which is what we use now. That changed several years ago, and we've continued to use it, and it's just getting better and better, and they're making more improvements. So yes, we would have discussions with staff. We would bring people into vet programs. We do that anytime we have a big change like that.
Okay. And if possible, the board could.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't see us changing it unless it goes out of business, at least until after I retire. And
Okay. All right.
it's a lot of work.
All right. And let me think. My last question, probably lost it during that conversation, so it must not have been that important. That's
Okay.
all right.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I got one.
All right, Mr.
So
Alpert.
what do you think, why are the Asians subgroup, smoking everybody? But we're up here discussing, like, we need to change this, we need to get this program, we need to do this, we need to do that. But they're taking the same stuff all these other people are taking, all the rest of us.
I don't know that I have an answer for that.
Well, I would say it's kind
Yeah.
of proof that it's
Yeah.
your home life obviously has a huge part in this.
I
mean-
think that if I could say anything to all of our parents, you're seeing our work on chronic absenteeism. If students aren't in school, they can't learn the material.
Yeah.
And we need them in school, we need them there, and we need parents who are willing to help in the evenings and help us during the day. And we have to get back to being a community of people working together. And so,
Matt, I read a report recently. I can dig it out and send it to you if you'd like to see it. If you look at all of the states across the United States and how they do on their state-level assessments, and you look at the Department of Defense schools and how you use Asian, I'll use Department of Defense students, they outperform all 50 states. Now, why is that? Think about military
structure.
families. Right, these are kids that move frequently and change school environments often, but high levels of expectations at home, follow through at home, it makes a difference for all of us.
Parents.
So, we're holding ourselves accountable to these results. I think this is a good time to say, parents have rights and parents have responsibilities. And part of their responsibilities is read with your kid. We talked about that earlier, what happened with kids. Everybody should be reading with their children every day. And parents should be asking their children, what are you learning? And asking them questions about what they're learning at home, because we're in this together. Our teachers and our parents are working together. But if you'd like that report, I can dig it out for you.
I remembered my other question. I think it is important. I'm sorry. I'm full of questions. You talked about the county or the city that had made the gains, and that, that's someone that you're really looking at. And I agree, gains is important, but you're also not just looking at the gains, you're looking at the actual number, right? Because if let's say you were at 0 and you made it to 50%, well, that's a huge gain, but you're still not very good.
you're exactly right.
Right, so you're not looking just at gains, right?
No, sir,
Okay.
no.
All right.
No, we're looking at highest performing in the consortium. And, there's so much that goes into that. We've been looking at a lot of data, what are they doing in their county? How much do they spend per pupil on their students? How large a school division, how small? So there's so many factors in there, but no, Galax City has it, they're in the top.
Understood.
For sure.
Just making sure it wasn't
Yes.
just gains.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Just a quick.
Okay, all right.
Sorry, we're dragging this out. I was a music major when I was in college, and I know that music is a big part of learning because it connects I call them brain connectors. And so is there a big push for band, for orchestra, for, choir? I also grew up in Michigan, and that was music was a big part of Michigan. I don't know if you guys are familiar. I mean, University of Michigan is like one of the top music schools. The atmosphere, the culture of music was instrumental in academics. And I just wondered what the culture of music, if that could also be campaigned, if you will, that would also probably increase our test scores as well. I mean, it's coming at it from a different angle, but I just...
Yes. So we do have a focus, and I've appreciated the fact that the board has always supported the fact of having art, music in every elementary school. We used some of our COVID money to try to increase the choral program at Liberty Middle. They were having a hard time getting students there and even getting a teacher. So we do try to put money in to increase those programs because we know that's where kids make connections. And I do just want to tell Mr. Knight that Dr. Calvert and I are very excited to tell you that we figured out how to add 2 PE teachers to the elementary rotation. So we're going to give you a little bit more PE. So we are focused on those things, and we do know how important they are. And we have a great set of resource teachers working on that. We can always do better. It's really what our kids are coming interested. We're trying to beef up our CTE, our band, our theater, our athletics. We focus on them all so kids can make connections somewhere, for sure.
Thank you, Dr. Woodford. All right, 2.03, second quarter forecast. Dr. Bergen.
Yes, sir. So board members, attached to this agenda item are the financial projections for the 23-24 school year. Those are based on year-to-date activity as of the 31st of January. Mr. Hagler and I met with the Budget and Finance Committee, and this information was reviewed at the committee level, and we'd now like to share that information with the board and the public. Mr. Hagler?
Yes, good evening. As Dr. Bergen was saying, this information was reviewed with the Budget and Finance Committee. Went into great detail talking through this about a week ago, but going to present to the whole board tonight on our financials. For those that were on the board, for my first quarter, is that close enough?
Yeah, you're good.
For my first quarter, mentioned that it was going to be a little bit tight of a year. Some difficulties that I saw on the expenditure side and on the revenue side. So I waited to do the second quarter until we had the amended budget actually loaded and also the salaries in for January. So this is a little bit late, but I needed that data in there to give more of a snapshot of how we're going to end up for the year. So the budget that you're looking at, the 2023-24 budget is the amended budget that was put into place that the board voted in, and that was because of the state's amended budget. Projected supplementals are revisions to the budget. I'll talk about those in detail later, but there's some recommendations to increase the revenue budgets by those amounts in those categories right there. And then I've projected out where we would come at the end of the year. The difficulty you can see right away is on the sales tax. I've been mentioning that since the year began, and I'm still projecting pretty substantial shortfall on the sales tax. With that, the way the funding formula works, when the state does a caboose bill in the current year, they'll reforecast their sales tax lower, which forces them to give more state money to you. That has to be in their caboose bill for the current year. So that has been introduced by the governor, so hopefully that'll pass through the General Assembly and be signed. And so we'll get some of that money back from the reduced sales on the state funding, but not 100%. Because of the funding formula. So that's the biggest shortfall in the revenue. So overall, projecting at the end of the year about $500,000 below budget on the revenue side for about a $122 million projected ending revenue. We still have 5 months to go, some variables that still have to be submitted to the state. So there's some revenue streams that I'm not 100% sure on, but this is my best projection for the end of the year. So I'd stop at this point and ask if there's any questions on the revenue side before we get to the expenditure side. Okay. On the expenditure side, there were pressures that I reported in the first quarter, especially on the maintenance side and some of the instructional. So once again, revised the budget to the amended budget. So there's projected supplementals or revisions to the budget that match the revenue side. So at the end of the year, I'm projecting that we're going to come about $3.6 million under budget on the expenditure side. That sounds really great. However, because of the all-in Virginia money that we're receiving, the state is sending me 100% of that money in the current year. So I'll receive all that money, but we have 3 years to spend it. So even though I'm projecting a big amount under on the expenditure side, we're going to have to reappropriate that next year. So that I have to back that out, or I have to project that out, back it out to make a truer projection where we're going to end. So if you look at the expected revenues, expected expenditures, and you back out that all in Virginia ending balance, I'm projecting we're going to be at about $84,000 at the end of the year to the good. So out of $122 million, that's calling it pretty close, but I think I can bring this budget in. We're going to have to do quite a bit of supplementals, which I'll go over later. But all the categories should be under budget here. I had to do one category transfer, which I'll speak to with the supplementals here in a minute. But be happy to answer any questions on the expenditure side. There's some more detail by category further back in that, but I've given the summary here at the top. So see if there's any questions on the expenditure side. Okay. I will make a note where I did mention the maintenance, higher electrical costs coming in, higher repair and replace costs coming in, and that's where I've seen most of the pressure this year. So we're going to have to, when we get into we're in the budget season, working with the budget committee, all these things I have to look at for projecting the budget next year. There will be some technical adjustments where we will have to increase the budget for these items because they're going to be reoccurring in future years. We'll go to, I'm on the slide here looking at the nutrition fund. It's the last page on my forecast where I report on the different funds outside the operating fund. So the nutrition fund is a self-supporting fund with really federal revenue coming in and then some sales in our nutrition department. Began the year with $2.8 million, projecting about $1.8 at the end of the year. The state is requesting that we spend those funds down. They don't want it to be that high. During the COVID and years, that really ballooned a lot. There was a lot of federal money coming in, and we're in the process of spending that down. So we have spent some of that money down this year to the tune of almost $990,000 at loss showing at this point. The nutrition fund's hard to pinpoint at this point because there's delayed revenues coming in that are not posted in the financials. So it's like a moving target. And also on the expenditure side, I did talk to the committee about this, and we're going to look into it a little bit more. We will report a school-by-school profit and loss to that committee at a future date here, probably not the next meeting, but the following meeting, we'll bring that to them and look at each school's profitability as we watch this. But there were quite a bit of prepaid expenses made in processing fees that went into the expenses that we will not have the rest of the year. So I expect this number to be a lot better by the end of the year. Not quite as big a loss, but the state still wants us to spend this money down to a more acceptable level, which is, they really want the ending balance probably at about 1.2, 1.3 million. So that's our target. The textbook fund, it was mentioned earlier asking about adoptions. So the textbook fund works in that we have local money going in there. We also have state money going in there. We have reoccurring money expenditures that happen each and every year. Some of it is for digital content. Some of it is for workbooks or things that need to be replaced each year. Typically $400,000 to $500,000 reoccur each every year without an adoption. When you have a big adoption year, math, history, English, historically it's been about $1 million. Inflation is driving that up, so we'll have to look at what happens there. A lot of the content now is digital. So it used to be in the past during a recession, it was all tight. Everybody didn't do any adoptions. They postponed them. You just don't get new textbooks. Well, now you have contracts for digital content. When it's up, it's up. You're going to have to renew. So we've got to make sure this account stays at a properly funded level so when those big adoptions come, that we have the money set aside. And as Dr. Woodford mentioned, the next one will be math. They'll start looking at that next year for the 25-26 year. So that's why that balance will be, we want to maintain a pretty large balance because you'll see $1 million or 1.2 flow out of there when you're doing an option. So we got to maintain a higher balance there. The maintenance fund. Facility committee, we work with the facility committee looking over this balance. Once again, we're raising funds. We're letting them, the funds get bigger because sometimes there's some big projects out there that have to be taken care of. In the upcoming years, we have HVAC projects at both Stanton River and Liberty High School campus-wide. Those are going to be $4 to $5 million projects. So we need that balance to be up there so we don't spend it all down. We have to accumulate those balances for those projects. So you can see where where our balance began, where we are right now. Year-to-date expenditures, about $4 million of that is for completing HVAC projects that came in. We received ESSER money, but also used local money to finish those. So a lot of those projects were finished up. So a lot of those expenditures came in and we spent and finished up those projects. So out of the 5.1, $4 million is probably for HVAC. Another $500,000 was done for a water heating loop at Stanton River High School. So that accounted for most of that. The reserve for ongoing projects, we're right now looking at putting out bids. We're working with the facility committee, a wastewater treatment plant at Stanton River High School, Stanton River Middle. That's going to be quite expensive. $1 million to $1.5 million is what we're estimating for that. We're getting those documents will be reviewed by the facility committee and brought to the board probably at the next meeting to put out and advertise for. Also, there's some roofing projects for Otter River and Huddleston that are being looked at. Those documents will probably be brought to the board at the next meeting to put those out for advertisement also. So that's some projects that are ongoing and that we're looking at, and then there will be an advertisement that I'm going to ask the board to put out tonight for flooring tile for Bedford Primary. So those are the reserves that are ongoing projects that I kind of like put the money aside as watching our balance there. Any questions about the maintenance fund? Okay. And the last fund is we are self-insured health fund. So we get bills in every week from Anthem saying, send us this money. These are the claims for the week. So we began the year at $6.8 million. I'm showing $6.4 million as of January 31st, so you can see about $400,000 less. We do have most of our employees in a high deductible plan, so at the beginning of the year, they're paying most of the bills there, and then as they hit those deductibles, it falls more on the plan. So there might be a little bit of future erosion on that number by the end of the year. We have a meeting scheduled with our consultants for the end of February. I'll present that to the Budget and Finance Committee, and we'll have to consider whether we need to adjust rates for next year. So that might be a possibility, but we'll look at our reserves and also what our trend is, and then high claims. So we'll look at a lot of data before we change rates on health insurance. But there's been a little bit of a slip there. For new board members, we're self-funded. We do have quite a bit in reserves. We estimate that if we were to switch back to fully funded at one time, probably $2 to $2.5 million, is what you need to do that. So we've got more reserves. That allows us to smooth out and not make big adjustments in any 1 year to our rates and to absorb a bad year if we were to experience one. So that concludes presentation on the financial reports. The fund's looking good balance, and I think the operating fund will come in on target at the end of the year, and we're starting to work on next year's budget. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Hagel. That takes us to informational items, 3.01 policy updates. Dr. Bergen?
Yes, board members, your IGA committee, or Intergovernmental Affairs Committee, met earlier this week on the 6th of February for the executive team and myself to review some proposed revisions to 7 policies. So the purpose of this item tonight, it's an information item, so that all of the board members and the public are aware of the proposed revisions to these 7 policies. You have a month to contemplate them, and then next month you'll be asked to take action. As always, by way of reminder, if you want to read the full redline version of the recommended changes in policy, there's a link associated with this agenda item. If you click on that link, it'll take you to a Google Doc. Anything that is new language is underlined, and anything that's being removed is struck through. I'm just going to briefly summarize name the 7 policies and briefly summarize what the changes are, beginning with EEA, which is Student Transportation Services. The revisions are really just limited to minor grammatical updates and an insertion or a reference, an insertion of a reference to our student code of conduct within the policy. Policy FFA, school names. Again, revisions are limited to minor grammatical updates to provide consistent language across all policies. Although we did have a robust conversation with the committee about how our facilities and schools named, the policy's not changing. It is the board's responsibility and privilege to name a school or name a facility, like a field or an auditorium. They can be named after a person or a group. Really, your only major limitation is you can't name it after a person unless that individual has been deceased at least 10 years. But if we have individual donors or corporations or companies that want to make a donation, we can certainly consider that. We had a lot of conversation about that. I just wanted to be transparent about that at the committee level. Policy IICA field trips, the revisions include the removal of an annual report. This has been in our policy. It's not required by state code, and it's never been our practice. So while we were reviewing this policy, we're recommending that we remove that annual report requirement. Of course, we do take lots of field trips. They're aligned to our instructional objectives. They are and will continue, of course, continue to be regularly scheduled at all grade levels, and the approval process really happens at the school level by the principal, just to ensure that the field trip is aligned to instructional objectives. Policy IL testing programs, revisions include new language that outline the requirement that student assessment results be shared with parents as quickly as practicably possible. JEA compulsory attendance, the revisions include updates to conform to state law, as well as determining a period of 5 days for a parent or parents to appeal placement of their child in an alternative education program, and additional language requiring that the school division cross-reference state reports with local attendance records within 5 days. This is already our practice. I think you heard from our presentations earlier tonight, we're really staying on top of attendance. You heard a reference to the HERO meetings. That's be here every day, ready and on time, and we're making sure that we're following state law and we're helping children to be regularly attending school. Policy JEC, school admission. Proposed revisions include updates as required by state law, including admission requirements for children of parents employed by certain federal agencies. Military children already have these provisions. This change in state law is just extending those exceptions for other children whose parents are employed by other federal agencies. And policy JHCC, communicable diseases and contagious concerns, the revisions reflect changes in state code, which are mostly confined to changes in titles of medical professionals. Again, we had a lot of conversation about this at the committee level. I just want to share with you, this policy currently states and will continue to state when children need to be excluded from school who have signs and symptoms of a communicable disease, not who are exposed to others who have signs and symptoms. And what those communicable diseases are is clearly spelled out in state law. There haven't been any changes really in state law in many, many years. If you heard the list, you'd be like, oh yeah, sure. We generally say if you're sick, you have a fever, stay home. Don't come and infect other people. So the changes in this policy really are just about changes in medical professional titles. If you want to take a deeper dive, I encourage you to follow the link. The IGA committee has already done a very deep dive of these, and I bring these revisions with their blessing and understanding. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them, or the members of the committee are here.
Any questions? All right, thank you, Dr. Bergen. Next is 3.02, update to school board meeting 2024 calendar.
Sure. This is, the administration's requesting of the board tonight that you make a minor adjustment to the published division calendar for the 2024. The minor adjustment is changing your own meeting date in August from the 8th of August to the 1st of August so that your meeting will not conflict with the open house nights that are scheduled across the school division on that date. Not asking you to take any action tonight, we're just asking you to be aware of this proposed change in the school board meeting date and take action on that next month.
Questions, concerns? All right, 3.03, BPS floor tile bid.
Yeah, Mr. Hagler and I met with the Facilities Committee and consulted with them on this particular item. The administration is requesting that the school board approve advertising for bids for floor tile replacement and asbestos abatement at Bedford Primary School. The submitted bids will be reviewed by the Facilities Committee, which is keeping with the school board's policy, and with the approval of the lowest bidder to be presented to the full board at your March 14th school board meeting. Mr. Hagler and members of the Facilities Committee are present if you have any questions about the need for this BPS floor tile bid.
Questions?
It's going to be done in the summer, this summer?
With the asbestos abatement, yes, it has to be. Yeah.
Included in this bid, are we able to direct purchase any of this material that we would need or no?
We'll explore that. Typically, it's the larger,
That's what I figured, yeah. Okay.
mechanical units and stuff we're looking at doing that for. So we'll see how the bids come in. We'll work with the vendor and see if there's an opportunity there.
Sure.
So we can do that when we need to do that.
Any other questions? All right, 3.04, fuel bid.
Yeah, the administration's requesting that the school board approve a fuel bid. It's attached to this agenda item. We'd like to go out for advertising. The lowest bidder will be presented to the school board for your approval next month at the March 14th school board meeting. Again, we reviewed this need with the Budget and Finance Committee, but Mr. Hagler and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have about the need to go out for a fuel bid. Anything more to add, Mr. Hagler?
Yeah, so Randy, real quick, on where our buses go and fill up, I think there's a card that they use, is that correct, that allows them?
Yes, they have it's called a fob that they'll put into the unit.
Okay.
They'll type in their passcode, and then they can fill in. They have to type in the odometer reading when they do that also. We do also let the county facilities use those too for diesel fuel and for gasoline, so we bill them back for that. That's for their, the fire trucks and.
Okay,
and
but all of
vehicles.
that is considered the amount that we're,
The amount yes, the amount, we have estimates that we give out with the fuel bid, so they know how much fuel they're bidding for the different
Okay.
types. And so those estimates are what they're going to be bidding off of. When I factor in how much has to go in the budget, I do back out what we typically bill the county.
okay, perfect, thank you. Any other questions?
This is just informational. We don't need to move this?
This is really for the board. This is information that we're going out for bid. We'll
Okay.
bring the results back at the
Okay.
next board meeting for you to approve.
Okay. Then if you needed approval to go out, got it.
Yeah, we just wanted to know if you had any concerns about us going out for a fuel bid.
no,
That's the purpose of the
I don't.
agenda item.
Yeah, we gotta have it. All right, 3.05, supplemental appropriations.
There are a number of supplemental appropriations and category transfers for the board's consideration in regards to the current 23-24 budget. All of these supplemental appropriations, which are detailed on this agenda item, have already been reviewed by the board's Budget and Finance Committee. We'll be asking the full board to take action next month at your March 14th meeting. Mr. Hagler is here to answer any questions, as well as you members of the Budget and Finance Committee. Anything more?
There's quite a few there. There's several that are due to basically new grants that we went after and were awarded, and then there's some there that we are using some federal funds that got carried over from last year, and we're spending them down this year primarily. I did mention there's one category transfer. We're experiencing a very favorable budget forecast on the transportation side. As I mentioned, the maintenance side was hit a little bit harder, so there is money being shifted between there. That is up to this board only. All the supplementals would have to go to the Board of Supervisors for approval after the board approves those, and those will be brought back at the next board meeting.
Questions, comments? All right, thank you, Mr. Hagler. Do I have a motion to go into closed session?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that pursuant to Code of Virginia 2.2-3711A1 to discuss the assignment, appointment, performance, disciplining, and release of contract for specific school board employees.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Daniels. Do I have a second?
So moved.
Second by Mr. Nelms. All right, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are now in closed session. Do I have a motion to come out of closed session?
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Holbrook. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Nelms. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are out of closed session. Ms. Johnson?
Whereas the Bedford County School Board has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And where Section 2.2-3712D of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by this school board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Bedford County School Board hereby certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered.
Yes.
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 All right. Do I have a motion for the approval of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is that Mr. Knight? Is that you?
I think it was Chris.
Oh, Chris, I'm sorry. All right, so that was Mr. Daniels. I'm trying to make sure I'm looking at Diana. All right, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Holbrook. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Superintendent's report, Dr. Bergen.
Yes, sir. So, board members, I have a couple of updates I'd like to share with you, high level, from Virginia Board of Education and Virginia Department of Education since we were last together. First, we were talking a lot tonight about the standards of learning, or the SOLs, which a lot of folks think of SOL, they think of the assessments the kids take at the end of the year. That's the SOL assessment. The standards themselves are the essential content, processes, and skills as defined by the state at each grade level in each subject area. And those standards of learning are required by state code to be reviewed every 7 years. This is the year for review for reading. So currently, during this month, the Virginia Board of Education is receiving public comment either online or in person. Anyone who is interested in learning what are the proposed changes to the standards of learning and reading, you can read them on the Virginia Department of Education website. And if you're interested in going to an in-person meeting to provide public comment, the dates and locations are listed there on the Virginia Department of Education website, or you can make public comment directly through the website. On a related note, the Virginia Department of Education is going to be providing some training for superintendents and division leadership teams as part of the implementation of the Virginia Literacy Act. So in our presentation here tonight, you heard a lot about Benchmark Advance, the new curriculum that we purchased for our students this year. We really wanted to get a jump ahead. When I arrived here, I quickly learned that we were using a lot of different types of reading curriculums and different types of assessments, and I wanted to move to one standard set of curriculum materials in use across all of our schools so that we can maximize our professional development time and have comparative data, as we talked a lot about here tonight. And so with the board's full understanding, last year we went out, we looked at curriculum materials, and the board adopted Benchmark Advance. This was happening at the same time that the legislature was passing the Virginia Literacy Act, which requires that reading materials be aligned to the science of reading. And so we waited and waited and waited for the VDOE to give us their blessing on what are the textbooks that were going to be blessed for aligning to the science of reading. And fortunately, you know, I had inside information that Benchmark Advance was going to be one of them. So we bought those materials at the end of last year, and we rolled them out this year. Now we're going to be backfilling in with some professional development. So we've been providing professional development through our contract with Benchmark Advance, but over the next 4 months, myself, Dr. Woodford, there's a team of 7 of us, are going to be going to 4 training sessions. These training sessions are being sponsored by the VDOE for all school divisions, and they're grouping them by superintendent regions. So we'll be attending as a team with the other school divisions around us so that we can learn from one another, We're doing them in a central location in our region so that we can all travel together, receive the information, and then travel back and have conversation about what we're learning and thinking. This will all culminate into a division literacy plan. All school divisions will write a division literacy plan on a consistent template, and it'll be submitted to the VDOE for approval, and it will be aligned to the Science of Reading and to the Virginia Literacy Act. So I just wanted you to know this is all happening over the next 4 months. We're very excited to have this high-level professional development, and we'll bring our learning back, and then we'll continue to go deeper into the professional development beyond the instructional leadership team at the central office to our principals, assistant principals, and reading specialists. And now I'd like to get on to some of our celebrations. We're going to start tonight with the Stanton River Wrestling Team. I know there's at least one board member up there who's pretty excited about this presentation. Graydon Martin, an 8th grader at Stanton River Middle School, recently placed 3rd at the Tulsa Nationals and was named a Tulsa All-American. Congratulations to you, Graydon. Also, the Stanton River High School boys won the Blue Ridge District Championship. Landon Jobber Spence also got his 100th career win in the finals, and Colin Martin was named District Wrestler of the Year. Not to be outdone, the Stanton River girls wrestling team did not leave the meet empty-handed either. They too came home district champions. Congratulations to our Stanton River wrestlers. Governor Youngkin proclaimed the week of January 14 through 20 as Virginia School Principal Appreciation Week. We proudly recognize our BCPS school principals for their outstanding performance through their leadership and their hard work, which are essential to the success of our schools. We thank them for all that they do. We had a special thing planned for the leadership team and our principals, and snow came. So we've invited all the board members? Yeah, so if you've not caught up with it, we've invited all of you to join us for a celebratory luncheon with our principals. Please let us know if you're going to be able to join us. Speaking of principals, Mr. Kevin Spalding, principal of Montville Elementary School, pictured on the right, along with Mr. Will Satterwhite, the Liberty High School music teacher, are this month's Bedford's Best recipients. Mr. Spalding was acknowledged for his unwavering commitment to the betterment of his students and staff, and Mr. Satterwhite was nominated for the kindness that he shows his students, particularly for always providing for their special accommodations. Thank you to our partners at the BAEF, the Bedford Area Educational Foundation, for their financial support in helping us celebrate our exceptional staff. If any of you or anyone listening would like to nominate someone for Bedford's Best recognition, just go to our social media channels and follow the link. In other celebrations, earlier today, Mr. Hill and I made our way out to Big Island Elementary School along with several other members of our leadership team so that we could present a Virginia Kindness Ambassador Award to Mrs. Katie Callahan. Katie is an IDS, or an Intervention Design Specialist, who works with students at Big Island Elementary School, and she was nominated for this award by her colleagues. Virginia Kindness Week is celebrated the second week of February, and it's sponsored by the Virginia Department of Education. Its intent is to recognize individuals who do those simple day-to-day acts of kindness that enable our schools and our communities and our whole state to be a kinder, safer, and more inclusive place for all of us to live, work, learn, and play. Our thanks to Mrs. Callahan and to all of the teachers and staff members for helping to make our schools a kinder and safer place for our students. The theme for our most recent Bedford One Tour was Emergency Services Industry Tour. As pictured up here on this slide, we had 29 of our high school students have an opportunity for some hands-on learning with the Bedford County Fire and Rescue Department, Bedford 911 Communications Center, and the Bedford County Sheriff's Office. It was an amazing day for our students to see the fast-paced work life of Bedford County's amazing emergency responders. Students, if you'd like to sign up for a Bedford One Tour, just speak to your career coach at your base school. All of our staff, our teachers, and our paraprofessionals continue to teach Bedford County students exceptionally well, in part to the professional development opportunities that we offer. Pictured here are activities from this past Monday, which was a professional development day for teachers and paraprofessionals with the theme of Raising the Score for 2024. Many of the presenters, some pictured here and others not pictured, were our own folks who we have picked out for the good work they're doing and lifted them up so that they could provide professional development for their colleagues. We'd also like to give special thanks to our community partners who donated door prizes and raffles to keep the day even more exciting and entertaining for our staff. As we mentioned earlier during student and staff recognitions, Governor Youngkin has designated the month of February as School Board Appreciation Month. School boards play a vital role in ensuring that students across the Commonwealth have access to high-quality, rigorous education and are best positioned to uphold education excellence in Virginia schools. Thank you, board members, for all of your contributions to our community and to our students. February is also designated Black History Month, and this year's theme emphasizes African Americans and the arts in the fields of visual and performing arts, literature, fashion, folklore, language, film, music, architecture, culinary, and other forms of cultural expression. The African American influence has been significant in shaping the history of this country. Teachers are incorporating this theme in their lessons throughout the month to enhance students' understanding of the contributions of African Americans within the American culture. This week is National School Counseling Week, which is to highlight the essential contributions of our school counselors, particularly in helping students achieve success in school and plan for a career. They're also essential in helping our students to manage their emotions, to learn and apply interpersonal skills, and to plan for post-secondary options. So thank you to all of our counselors for your role in building citizens and promoting success. And lastly, here are the three things I'd like you to know. Tomorrow, Friday, the 9th of February, is the annual BCPS Spelling Bee at Liberty High School. It starts at 9 a.m. The MC is the greatest of all-time voices. Mr. Ryan is going to be calling out the words. If you've never been to a spelling bee, this is something you have to experience once in your life. It is really amazing to see all these elementary and middle school kids line up on the stage and spell words, which I always try to spell them along with them, and I usually get eliminated by the second round. So come on out and join us tomorrow, Liberty High School, 9 o'clock. This Saturday, we'll be hosting our second bus recruitment event. This time we're going to be down at Stanton River High School from 9 in the morning to 11 in the morning. Last one we did here at Liberty, we had, Josh, help me remember, 18? We had 18 folks who thought, yeah, I want to learn how to drive a school bus, and we put them behind the wheel and drove them around the school parking lot. And then they came in, ate a donut, had a cup of coffee, filled out an application, and we started the training process. So we're going to do it again. You all want to drive a bus, this is your shot. Come out this Saturday, 9 to 11, Stanton River High School parking lot. We're going to have donuts and coffee. For people who are listening who are taking me seriously here, and I hope you are, we do paid training. So we'll pay you for the time that we're training you to drive a bus, and we'll have HR on site on Saturday morning to help with the application process, to answer questions about salary and benefits and get you behind the wheel. And then lastly, Friday, March the 1st, is our annual Hoopin' for Heroes event. This is an event to fundraise for Special Olympics. If you're new to us and you're not familiar, we have a wonderful Big Feet Meet and Little Feet Meet each year, which gives our students with and without disabilities to pair up together and have fun and compete. We raise money for that with this Hoopin' for Heroes event. It's just a modest $5 donation at the door. All the proceeds go to the Special Olympics. That's on Friday, March 1st. Board members, I sure hope you'll be able to join me in Hoopin' for Heroes. The sheriff's department comes and they put together all their biggest, strongest guys to beat up on our faculty. So come on out and watch the basketball game. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my superintendent comments.
Thank you. All right, so matters from the board, committee reports. Mr. Knight?
Well, we had a facility meeting, I believe it was the 25th of last month, about some roof bids, and they're going to go back out to be rebid. And that's pretty much, other than the floor tile replacement that was mentioned tonight, that's pretty much all we discussed in that meeting.
Okay. Any discussion around CIP?
Well, it was more just focused on the roofing bids, which was, of course, part of the CIP. It was on the list for it.
So, Mr. Holbrook, we also talked about the plan for next year, and we're going to come back during the budget development process and ask the board to approve the work plan for next year, which includes some new roofs and HVAC projects, and we had some discussion about one school in particular.
Oh, yeah.
We talked about,
Yep, and because it's on the CIP plan for next year is Stewartsville Elementary. So that was whether or not to spend 20 million to keep it, possibly keep it, probably be more than 20 million, or, look into other options.
Okay. So $20 million. And remind me what percentage of the capacity for that school?
I believe it was
I don't
around
know, it's under 50.
40-something. It's under 50.
46%?
Okay. Does anybody have any concern with that? I mean,
Yeah. I think we all do. I mean, we have a lot of CIP needs. I personally feel like the number, the 100+ million of unfunded is probably a little low, especially in this inflationary period. And I think we got to be very smart about where we're spending money. I would like to see the facility meeting and the facility committee get with Mr. Blankenship and the rest of the executive team and put their heads together and say, what are the recommendations that we have on certain, buildings in our county that we're occupying? Does it make sense to put money into them? Does it make sense to look at redistricting? Does it make sense to look at even closing some buildings? I think that this is the time now where we're all up here to make tough decisions, and every decision we make or a lot of decisions we make will be pretty tough, but my opinion is that we can't kick the can down the road. We need to make some decisions, and we need to put all the options out there. On top of those, what we need to also do is we need to be able to provide the public with the reason why, and then what are we going to be able to do with those quote-unquote savings, and how does that going to affect their children's education? Because if we can positively impact that by not having to make transfers into CIP, to be able to keep it in, our operational budget, and then focus that on certain learning with our other results committee to drive student results, I mean, that's going to be the thing that's going to get people to say, yeah, it's tough, but you know what? This is absolutely necessary for us to do it. On top of that, there's tax implications because we have already asked Board of Supervisors for money for schools that honestly every kid in the county is going to go to. And, I for one am not going to go back and ask them for anything else that's going to raise the taxes of everybody else here. We have to be smart with the money that we have, and this is a first step to showing that we are fiscally responsible.
so, Dr. Bergen, I think what I'm hearing is we would like for your team to come back with some information on that particular school based on the fact of, I'm hearing $20 million, 42%, 47%, whatever it is, capacity. What are our options for relocating those students and faculty to different locations? And what would that look like? And then truly a cost savings, where you can show, and again, to Mr. Daniels' point, with that money, what would we then be able to do with schools that, all the kids in that zone are going to, or other areas. So is that something your team could bring back?
Sure. Would you like us to work with the facilities committee first, look at some options, have some discussion at the committee level, and then bring a recommendation from the facilities committee?
Absolutely. That's what the facility committee is for.
Okay.
So you definitely want that recommendation. And, again, what are the other buildings within our school system that we need to be looking at to make sure we're making the right decisions on go-forward basis?
Okay.
And that would also include maximizing use of other buildings. And I think you guys, we need to look at every possible option. There's going to be things that certain board members or the entire board may think we're not interested in that, but at least it was presented. We can eliminate it, and we can focus on the areas where we can get some consensus and agreement.
Okay.
Anything else, Mr. Holbrook?
That's it.
Good.
Okay.
That's
Um,
enough.
That's enough, yeah. Finance Committee, Mr. Hagler presented tonight what we discussed for the second quarter forecast and then also the supplemental appropriations. So we do have that. Another meeting scheduled in 2 weeks, correct? Didn't we decide on a 2-week meeting?
Yeah, the 15th.
Next week, okay. All right, so we do have one scheduled. So, Ms. Purvis, committee updates?
The Gov School and STEM Academy. I went and toured the Gov School, met with Dr. Smith. Kept thinking of Lost in Space when I was with him. He's wonderful. I enjoyed my visit with him, gave me a big tour of the facilities, very impressed. And we have our first board meeting in a few weeks. And then the STEM Academy, we had our meeting last week, and I also took a tour of their open house, and it was very nice, lot of excitement. Kids were, considering STEM, and so that was that. And that, again, I haven't had the board meeting with them yet, but I'm just trying to get my feel for those two committees. So the CPO committee.
Yes, we met January 22nd and basically changed the name. Originally, we were talking about the Curriculum and Performance and Outcomes Committee, and we changed it to that CPO just to kind of flesh out what its purpose is. We are working on defining the role of what that committee is going to really do, and we decided that the first step was really to kind of get together with what the current curriculum is and to have some presentations from the core groups, and we're going to have presentations at our next meeting from the math and science to see what the curriculum is, how it's being currently evaluated, so that we can kind of jump off from that. The Laurel Board postponed their meeting, and so that's not until the beginning of March.
Okay.
IGA met a couple days ago, and we presented the policy updates that we presented for information tonight. We are meeting again. It's February 27th, correct? I think that's the
That's right.
Tuesday.
Yep.
So we are meeting, me and Mr. Knight, and the executive team will meet and discuss some more policies, and we will bring those to you for information next month.
All right. Mr. Daniels, we'll continue with you for comments and concerns from school board members.
All right. First, this is a personal comment. Mr. Miller, who was a longtime, very friendly face at Jefferson Forest High School, is leaving us to pursue some other opportunities. I congratulate him and I wish him well. He's extremely well known to the JF community and all over Bedford County. If you don't know him, he's the guy who's got the mohawk. My son Cash will miss him tremendously. He was very upset last week. Cash is in a special needs classroom at JF, and Mr. Miller would visit Cash and his friends daily, talking to Cash about wrestling, sports, and he would arm wrestle with Cash every day with him and his friends. My son is not too keen on mascots, especially the Chick-fil-A cow, but Mr. Miller, who was known to dress up every now and then, would always come to him and make sure that he knew that, hey, I'm coming to the classroom, I'm Cav Man, I'm doing all this stuff, and it made Cash feel at ease. He even gave Cash a Rey Mysterio luchador mask, who's a wrestler, before he left. And Cash has that in his room. The thing that I think will be missed about Mr. Miller the most is how he made everybody feel special and loved. We wish him great success in his future endeavors. Another thing that was brought up tonight was something about Legacy Education Center. You know, I think Mr. Dutton had presented a couple years ago to us. I would like to see him come back and provide some updates on how the program has expanded. I know we have a ton of opportunities here in Bedford County, but we don't, with our net, we don't capture everybody. And I think it's important that we do not let an opportunity go by to help lift up our kids and their families. This could be something generational. So based on that, I really think that we should look into having Mr. Dutton come back and present to us. I'll leave that up to for discussion, but that's my thought. I had some other questions. Dr. Woodford, I had spoken to you, and I do not see Dr. Trosper around, but
Actually, Dr. Cornett is available.
my man.
He and Dr. Calvert are experts at
All right.
your question.
Couple of questions.
Sorry, Dr. Calvert. It's okay. I've got it.
I'll be easy. And some of these questions may flow back into the CPO facility and your guys' discussions, but I just have had some questions that have been asked upon me. So in Bedford County Public Schools, we have for grading, we have a 5-point scale
Yes, for some classes.
for some classes. So some people technically would have above a 4.0 grade
Several.
point average. It seems from what I'm being told that it causes some confusion, especially when it comes to college applications and filling out for scholarships, that you have to convert your GPA. And where some people are saying that they have over a 4, when they go to convert it to a 4-point scale, they don't have over a 4. So they're thinking they had an A average, and they don't. So they're saying that that's causing some concern and some conflict. So I don't know, when I went to high school, it was always a 4-point scale. And I don't know why it's a 5-point scale. I know that we have dual enrollment and some other things, but I'm just trying to understand why that is. And
Your dual enrollment, your AP, and your pre-AP classes are weighted because they are more difficult classes. So you want, like an AP chemistry to be weighted higher than is that what you're?
So AP courses, dual enrollment courses are rated on a 5-point scale, and then your honors courses, we call them honors now, they're on the 4.5. And then your standard courses are on a 4.0 scale. So all those, so an A in a dual enrollment class corresponds with a 5.0. Let's say it's dual enrollment English 12, where an English 12 would be a 4.0.
yeah, there's definitely some conversion that happens there, and I think that some people are like, well, I don't know what to put, so
It depends on the university.
yeah. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's calculate, it just, instead of adding a 4, you would add a 5. And then you would still divide by the number of courses that you took. So it's calculated the same, you're just using that weighted course value.
Yeah, I think they're getting confused with taking their weighted course and putting it over,
Mm-hmm.
so, okay.
Is that standard? Is that standard across other school systems?
Yes, pretty standard.
Okay.
Do other, again, and I get it, but I mean, I just want to make sure that other people are not being penalized. I know that when I asked about valedictorian and salutatorian, which I'd love to see reinstated, there was some confusion, or not confusion, they said that some kids would take easier classes that would be less strenuous so that they can get.
That's not the case.
So that's not the case?
So what it ends up being is I have firsthand knowledge of this. You have about 25 kids with straight A's. So, or more sometimes. So their grade point averages range from 4.0 to probably 4.6 somewhere. So what the game is, and it truly is a game, is you don't take any elective courses, you don't take band, you don't take chorus, you don't take anything like that because it lowers your GPA. Your total GPA is divided by the number of course credits. So if you have an advanced diploma, it's what it is divided by 26 that you need for that advanced diploma. So if you take as few electives as possible, your GPA goes up. If you, for example, if you drop your advanced diploma, your GPA goes up. If you don't take personal finance to your senior year, your GPA goes up. There's 100 of those I could give you. So that's, when you have 25 people kind of toggling for the spot, that's what ends up happening.
How do you fix it?
Well, what we have now,
So our program of studies outlines how graduation participants or speakers are selected, and that's based on their GPA at first. So all honor graduates who are between a 3.75 and a 3.99, those are honor graduates, and then our high honor graduates are 4.0 and higher. So the speakers in graduation, other than the class president, who
leads the class in.
the entire senior class is elected that person. The speakers in that are elected or selected, voted on by the honors group and the high honors group, from the high honors group. So 4.0 and higher are the speakers with the class president. And that's highlighted in our program of studies, which that's become the Bedford County tradition. At least 10 years that I know of personally, probably longer, Dr. Calvert.
Yeah, it's been a long time since we did it the other way. And this is just, it's so much better.
Also mention the exceptions, because you can have a 4.0 or higher, but there are exceptions. If you don't have a certain criteria, you don't sit on stage. Because I remember some scenarios.
Well, you have to be, just like Dr. Cornett said, there's honors and there's high honors. And those kids vote for who in the high honor category sits on stage.
Okay, gotcha.
So the honors gets to vote, but they don't get to be the ones voted on stage. Honors and high honors vote, and high honors sit on stage.
Now, there is a final class ranking that is on the final transcript.
That goes to the universities and counts for scholarships and definitely tells who number one is, but it comes out the day before
But
graduation.
for ceremonial purposes, that GPA is calculated after the first semester of their senior year. Because, and that, I believe that's caused an issue before too, because you have to get those folks selected early, and then that second semester could change your GPA after the school year, once it's completed, and you already have your.
Yeah, we selected in January, and that was the selection.
Well,
So if the person, we had kids, it was kind of sad. We had kids who wanted to take band, who wouldn't take band because it would knock them out of that seat. So they would take band until third 9 weeks, and then they would drop it so it wouldn't count on their transcript. It was just.
Yeah, because I was thinking, I was like, look, I could crush an AP history class, but I can't play an instrument, I can't act, and other than being in the shower, I can't sing either. So I was like, well, I just want to make sure that the kids are taking the classes that they want to take that would be good, not based on, well, this is going to hurt me. And
They need to take the classes that they want to take.
That to me is concerning. So, and then back to the other, with the conversion, they're thinking it's a total 5-point scale, and you're like, well, I got a 4.2, so you're doing cross multiplication, 4.2 over 5, and x over 4, and you're doing it, you're like, well, I got a really, I have a 3-point whatever, and they're like, wait a second. So that's not how.
But those institutions that transfer it back to 4.0, they look at that transcript, and they know what AP classes you've taken, or dual enrollment classes. They know your AP scores. All that matters.
So the shock of that is like, hey, don't worry about that.
All that
Your transcript
matters.
comes over, and then it's corrected, essentially.
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure. Thank you so much.
Anything else, Mr. Daniels?
Nope.
No comment.
Okay, Ms. Burns?
So I went and visited Big Island Elementary and was able to observe the English or the phonics, and that was awesome. I'm really enjoying the new curriculum. I think it's really, really good. I haven't seen all the reading part of it, but I look forward to seeing more of that when they have the presentation at the CPO meeting. And I also visited Boonesboro Elementary and watched a little bit of the math. Now, that's the curriculum that's going to be changing in a few years, hopefully, but it still was good and enjoyed Boonesboro Elementary.
I did recommend for them to paint the upper elementary wing because the paint is peeling off the walls and it's kind of a dingy, it's like a cream with a kind of a greenish color. So
Did you refer that to the facilities committee to make sure that was something that they were?
I just suggested that the principal do something with that, and he said he thinks he has it in the budget to do it, so I was going to leave it for him. But yeah, facilities, if you guys want to see if there's any funding for that, because it's pretty bad. But it was a pleasure meeting with both principals and seeing the schools. So that was very nice. I have had several comments from parents, teachers, subs, regarding the dress code and it being enforced or not enforced. The comment I got from the teachers when I asked, is there a dress code? They said, there is, but nobody enforces it. And I get it, especially after COVID, there was so much other stuff that, was trying to be addressed that the dress code was not being addressed. So I would like us to reevaluate that. I'd love it if the policies committee could talk about that and maybe, readdress it and make sure that we're on the same page throughout the school district to follow whatever guidelines that need to be followed in order to enforce the dress code. Or even make adjustments to it if it needs be or whatever. So anyway, that was the only thing that I was thinking, or that I've heard people say there needs to be some changes to that. But overall, it was a wonderful time with the 2 elementary schools that I went to. I've also met with Dr. Bergen and Dr. Woodford, and today I met with Mr. Cornett, is that correct? And getting to know what their different duties are and how I can help them. And so, yeah, it's been a pleasure working with all 3 of you. Or meeting all 3 of you and getting to know you a little better. So I look forward to working with you guys more.
Mr. Mills?
I just had one, concern from a parent. Is there any way we can put some type of, link on the school's pages to where it kind of lists any options for like after school and before school childcare services that are offered in the area? Is that possible, or is that something we can or cannot do?
Services that we're responsible for and provide, or?
Yes.
Sure.
Like if let's say a school has an after-school program, is that something we can put on there, hey, this is an option? Or if it's not, this is another option?
Well, I'm happy to do whatever the board would like. We have limited programs with our community partners that we operate in our schools before and after. If you're asking me if I can advertise for all the businesses and private individuals that provide before and after school care, I'm not sure that's well advised, but we can put links on our website for what we're responsible for, if they're not already there.
Gotcha. Sure. That's what I want to know.
Sure.
Mr. Holbrook?
I don't have any really other comment, but I would like to echo what Ms. Purvis said about the dress code. I haven't heard anything, but I've been to the school, and there's no way that it's being completely enforced. Some of the things I've seen there were, my daughter wouldn't be wearing it, I'll tell you that. Now, and I know I'm sure it's a hard thing to enforce, especially nowadays with the parents, but that's really all I got.
Okay. Mr. Knight?
Sure, yeah. I would like to kind of piggyback on Dr. Bergen's plug for the wrestling team. I appreciate that. And I'd like to invite anyone from the board, the admin, and anyone that's watching on YouTube, if there are any people there. This weekend, Saturday, Stanton River will be competing at the regional tournament in Abingdon, and I suspect they will win. This is the varsity boys. And then the following weekend, we will be in Salem for the state championships. I don't know if everyone knows, but Stanton River is the returning state champions, and I suspect we're going to be back-to-back with many kids winning individual state titles again this year. And I have to give a selfish plug for my daughter, who is the 106-pounder for the boys team, competing at regionals this year, which is the first time that's ever happened. And so I'm a little bit proud of that. And then also the girls will be competing at state in a couple of weeks near Richmond. So if you can't make it, at least be following them, you know, online and supporting them. They've been working really hard this year, and they're ready to bring home some titles. So.
All right. I do have a few things. Randy, I wanted to make sure, did I understand you say that we would possibly have some budget constraints with the new upcoming budget, or did I make that up?
I wouldn't say constraints, but I guess when I was presenting that when I look at the forecast for this year, where I see reoccurring permanent increases or adjustments to the budget, those will be presented to the committee.
Okay.
And those really have to be built in next year. For example, if electrical is running higher than we had budgeted this year, we need to budget that next year. That's a given. You've got to do. Fuel prices are increased. You've got to do that. Other things are, decisions the board has to make whether we want to do it or not. They're the have-tos, and then there's the want-tos. So
Yep.
those will be presented to the committee.
And that's what I wanted to call out, to let them know the financial committee will be looking at those.
Yeah, and the next meeting is really going to be all the things that I think that are have-tos.
Okay.
And then we'll move on to the want-tos or other adjustments after that.
Perfect, thank you. All right. So a couple years ago, our parents and community had requested that we start having our meetings. And I will say I also recommended it because I think it's important to be in our communities, to have these meetings at the different school zones. We've had, last month was at Stanton River, this month is at Liberty, next month is at JF, and I do recommend that we finish March out being at the JF location. However, one of the things that I would ask that this board consider and take a look at, and then also I would love to hear from the community, because we did make a commitment that we would travel to and fro for each of the school zones. But I don't think people realize the amount of work that it takes to host these meetings at these locations. Again, I'm not saying we should or we shouldn't, but I counted tonight, and we had a total of 29 people in this auditorium. 16 of those are staff and board members. That could easily be housed at our school board office. I would personally commit to the board, parents, community, that if at any time, any topic come up where we felt we needed a larger venue, we as a board would certainly agree to that. Now, I'm not asking for any action to take place tonight, but I do want this board to consider that as an option for us to meet in Bedford at the school board office after the March meeting, if the board agrees and or the feedback from the community supports that. So I just wanted to mention it. Second topic that I want to bring, well, before I go into that, congratulations to Ms. Callahan. Dr. Bergen did mention we were there this morning to present that VDOE Kindness Award. That was awesome. She was excited. Kids were excited for her, and the staff spoke very highly of her character, who she is, and she made a comment about how excited she is to get up every morning and come to school, and that those kids who were there made it very easy for her to be nice to them and to want to help them. And I thought that was a great reminder of what we do, and that, man, wouldn't it be nice to be able to wake up every morning and have that joy of going to work. So kudos to Ms. Callahan. All right, next topic is around VSBA, the Virginia School Board Association. I had asked Diana Johnson, our board clerk, to collect some information that I wanted to share with the board. Again, I'm not asking to take action, but I would like your input on if it's something that you're interested in. But currently, we are a member of the VSBA. These are facts that Ms. Johnson is sharing with us, and I want to share with you for us to consider. We spend $11,063 a year to be part of the VSBA. In addition to that, we pay $3,750 a year for policy services. Caveat is you cannot only have policy services. So in order to have policy services, you have to be a member of the VSBA. So let me go back. On the $11,063 per year, that contract is from July through June every year. The policy services contract is September through August. Without VSBA policy services, and this is something we need to consider, VCPS would need to pay an attorney for all policy services. So anything that comes out of Richmond, they would need to review, make recommendations to us, and we go from there from an IGA perspective. Mr. Daniels was on a call with Elizabeth Ewing from VSBA where she stated that we would not have to remove any existing policies because there are no copyrights. So anything that we have today that we have adopted as our policies are Bedford County Public School policies moving forward. One of the other questions that I had a concern about is because we do have a discount with board docs through our relationship with VSBA. We pay currently $10,200 a year for board docs, and that's with the VSBA discount, and that contract is also July through June. Without us being a member of VSBA, our board docs fee would go from $10,200 a year to $13,000 per year. So a slight increase, but to me a significant savings if we do not move forward with VSBA. So what I'm asking of the board is for you to consider those facts that I've shared tonight. If it's something that you want us to further discuss, I would like you to let me know as the chair so I can have that added to the agenda for next month where we will do an information, and then the following month is where we would take action. But we will need to notify before the end of June since that's the end of that contract that we're currently in. So just sharing information.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
How much did you say the policy review?
The policy review is $3,750 a year for policy services.
Okay.
So they make recommendations based on what the state decides. It comes down to our staff who meets with the IGA to say, here are the recommendations. And then at that point, the IGA is told this is a recommendation or this is state law. There have been times where we do not take the recommendation, but if it's a state law, of course, we have to implement some type of policy.
So we would be notified of the state law?
Yes.
Either way,
But
right?
we would have to run that through an attorney for them to make a recommendation on what we do have to implement and what changes we need to make.
Do we have any idea what that would cost per annum on an annual basis to?
I don't, but I think that's a great question. So probably what we can do, staff, keep me honest here, can we go back and see if Ms. Sexton can help us with this, of any data that come down for absolute policy change that was required by the state last year? How many of those come down from the state based on recommendations from VSBA that we had to go implement?
So let me just ask, so we get recommendations from the state, VSBA puts together the policies and then sends them to us? Or do we get?
They make recommendations. And that's why your IGA then reviews and either accepts those recommendations
Or rejects them or makes our own changes.
Rejects them,
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
I think that there also may be other groups that would also provide policy services.
Okay.
And I think we should research that and see what that cost also is.
Again, and that's why I'm bringing it up, because I want to know if it's something that the board wants to discuss as an information next month. And I think that's where we can then get all of our data gathering.
Okay.
But if you'll let me know, I will add it to the agenda if the majority of the board wants that.
Yeah, we need to look at options.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I'd agree.
okay. All right. Any other questions on that before I move to my next topic? All right. The next topic that I would like to review with the board is that you take one and pass it down. One and pass it down. And Barry, if you could add that slide that I'm going to be reviewing with the board, please. Okay. All right, so board members, you're going to find several documents in here, and what I'd like you to do is take a look at the first document that's in your folder. So as we all know, we are going to begin looking at a superintendent search. And so what I have here is a recommendation. Ms. Johnson and I had some help from HR to help move this along and put this together. But what I would like to do with the approval or the consent of the board is I would like to, I'm going to review this, but at the end of it, if we agree on this and this timeline for our superintendent search, I would like to communicate this via our social media and website effective tomorrow. So we are being very transparent to our community of what our plan is. And so what you will see is on February 26th through March 19th, we would like to implement a public input survey. All right, so I'm gonna jump ship for 1 second. Part of that survey is the document behind that, the other document in your folder. What you will see there is a list of 20 possible survey questions. And what I would like you to do, if we all agree that the public input survey is something we want to do, and I do highly recommend that we include our public. Again, this public survey can be done by our community members, teachers, students, anyone in our community can go out and we publish this survey link. They'll be able to take this. But what I would like the board to do is to review these 20 questions and identify your top 10 questions that you think are important for us to survey the public on. Those questions I would like you to have to Ms. Johnson no later than close of business next Tuesday. So that gives you tomorrow through the weekend and then by end of day on Tuesday.
You want us to return the folder? Just
No, you can have this folder.
Okay.
But I want you to select these questions and you can just send her, I like question number 1, question number 6, question number 10. Just so we understand what the majority of the board and the will of the board is, what type of questions that you want to include on this survey. If you don't think the right question is on here and you want to submit a different type, you can certainly include that, but please know that the top 10 survey questions that are identified, that's what I would like to go with, of course, at the will of the board. All right, so that is the survey. So again, that survey would be available February 26th through March 19th. The next step is February 29th, March 5th, and March 19th. And you notice that there are different locations. So your February would be at Liberty High School, March 5th would be Jefferson Forest High School, and March 19th would be Stanton River High School. I would like to take a town halls approach versus a public hearing. The difference for me as a public hearing is we come here, we sit on this stage, and we listen to 4 hours of people coming to that podium and just talking. What the town hall approach allows us to do is as many of us as possible that can attend these different sessions, we will be located in the library of each of these sites, which allows teachers, community members, parents, students, anyone to come in and have one-on-one conversations with us at different times. I personally think that that gives more people an opportunity to come in and speak. I also think that people who are not willing to speak publicly, to us and it be, live or whatever, it allows them an opportunity to come in and speak to us one-on-one, which again gives us more input, which is what we're seeking. So that is the town hall. After the 19th, so you've got your surveys, February 26th through March 19th. You've got your town hall sessions, February 29th through March 19th. The week of March 25th, we will probably have to have a special called meeting to review the data that comes in from the survey and any conversations that we have one-on-one with folks during town hall. And then we will create a school board, the school board will finalize the leadership profile in what we are looking for on a go-forward basis for our new superintendent.
Would that be a public meeting or just?
Yes. Yep. Anything that we do where 3 or more of us meet is going to be a public meeting. All right, so after the week of March 25th, where we finalize our leadership profile, we go into April, which is the recruitment and submission of applications for superintendent. So that will be posted, and that information will start flowing in of those who are interested based on what we are looking for as we advertise that. I want to be very clear that the information that is coming in, because we will have people internal and external that I'm sure will be interested, that data coming in will solely go to Ms. Johnson. So she will be the keeper of the information that's coming in. Okay? All right, so after our April 2024 recruitment and submission of applications, we will again meet to select our top candidates of who we want to interview. That will be done in 2024, interview and selection process. And that process will go from, interviewing a certain number. Again, we have to see how many we get. And then we will narrow that down to our top 3, where we will then again take step 2 of interview process. Late May to early June, we will make a decision as a board. And then that will be announced late May to early June, and the school year starts on July 1st for the superintendent. So I'll be more than happy to answer any questions, but if everyone on this board, or at least consensus, 4 of us are okay with this timeline, I would again like to share this with the community and the public, publishing this tomorrow to set the stage for this is our plan to find our new superintendent.
I have a question.
Okay.
The May interview and selection process, can you describe what you're thinking on that respect? I mean, are we meeting all of us together and interviewing?
Yes, all 7 of us we will have questions, and again, all of this builds off of what the community and staff and our surveys are telling us that we should be searching for in our new superintendent.
So in April, when they're doing the recruitment submission to Ms. Johnson, she's going to be eliminating anything that doesn't.
She won't eliminate anything.
Oh, we're going to get all of that.
We as a board will look through those, and we will see every applicant that comes in. We will review that. Because it is specific, we will, keep me honest, Ms. Johnson, we will be able to go into closed session to review those applications because it is specific.
Individuals, that is correct.
Correct. So we will be able to have conversations based on what we're looking for, and then we will make a decision of the candidates that we want to move forward to interview. And then after that initial interview, we will decide top 3 candidates, and we will go for a second interview and then make our decision.
So that's all happening several different days in May. Okay.
Correct. Yep, we have a very tight timeline.
Mhm.
Yep. Yep. Good. Any concerns with publishing this tomorrow? Mr. Daniels?
Nope,
You good?
no concerns.
Dr. Bach? You good? Okay. All right, well, I appreciate the feedback, and I will work with Ms. Johnson and provide information that's needed to get that posted for tomorrow. I appreciate that. All right, that's all I had. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, Mr. Nelms, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Daniels. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned.